You can do it. You can tell the story.
You want me to tell it, do you?
Yes.
Have you got some questions prepared, or?
We'll do that after the
Oh, I see.
thing.
Right, okay. Now, this was a very long time ago, as you know, so I'm having to try and recover my memory of the events. But my wife and I didn't live in our present house in Wray. We lived in a little house, number 70 Main Street, only 2 doors away from where we live now. And it was a small house, and we had only got married in the February of that year, and this of course happened in August, and it was a Sunday afternoon, and it suddenly became very dark, and we could see through the windows of the small cottage we had that the sky was getting darker and darker and darker, very dark clouds indeed, almost purple, and clearly it was going to rain. And it did start raining, and it rained and it rained, and in all the years since I've never seen in this country rain as hard as that for so long. It came down in what we used to call in those days stair rods. That is to say, it came vertically down in huge drops, and so when it fell to the ground, the water droplets bounced up. I looked out of the window several times to see if it was going to slacken off, and quite clearly it wasn't, or at least it didn't. And then I saw somebody in all this torrential rain walking down the middle of the street. It was a girl. I have a feeling it was Brenda Mickle, but I can't quite be sure that it was. And I thought it very odd that somebody should be out in that rain, because nobody would want to be out in a rainstorm like that unless there was some good reason. So I thought, that's very odd. I wonder what is the cause of that. I opened the door and looked up the street in the direction from which she'd come, and I saw 1 or 2 other people. It looked to me as if they were in some distress. Certainly they were not behaving normally. They looked as if they were really something was happening to them. And at last the rain just then began to slacken a bit. So I thought, well, I better go out and find out what's going on. And I walked up the street towards the post office, and I said to somebody, what's the matter? And they said, there's been a flood. The houses at Bridge End are being washed away. So I went with some of those people down towards Bridge End, and as soon as I got round the corner, I could see water coming over the street. It had come over what we used to call Smithy Brow, which was where the blacksmith used to throw his metal hoops down into the stream below in order to cool them off after he'd had them in the forge, because that was where the old forge was. Although by that time it had ceased to be a forge. But it was quite a height above the water, and you wouldn't normally expect water to be coming over there. And yet it had clearly just swept over there and was beginning to recede a bit down the street, which is a sloping street at that point. And then I saw a number of other people, including the policeman, Jerry Forrest. Going down the street and going behind some of the houses, as we went closer to Bridge End, where there was water over the bridge, the policeman began to find out if there were people who needed help. And some people were helped out of their houses, at the back of those houses. One or two people had managed to get out earlier, and some people, a few people, were still left and they needed some help to get them out. Mrs. Whittam was one of those people. The whole of the scene at Bridge End was devastated because the strength of the water had removed quite a number of houses, particularly those on the side of the river, and the river had swept across the area, across the road, bypassing the bridge, because that was the straightest course for all this huge volume of water to take. Well, when Mr. Forrest was satisfied that everybody was out of the houses, then the question was simply to get people into somewhere where they might get some dry clothing. So people were taken in by other people into their houses so they could begin to get warm and dry. Fortunately, at the time the flood happened, it was daylight. I think matters might have been very much worse. In fact, some people might have lost their lives if it had happened during the night and it was dark. But of course, it was still pretty gloomy, and as night wore on, and everybody who needed somewhere to sleep was offered a bed, and there were more beds offered than the people who needed them. We did offer a bed in our house to the Reverend Birkinshaw, the vicar, who had been going up and down the street asking if anybody had got a spare bed for people to occupy who'd been driven out of their homes by the flood. We offered a bed, but because my wife and I didn't have any children at that point, so we did have a bed in a spare room. But actually everybody had been fixed up by that time by the vicar. And so everybody got to bed and got to sleep, even though a portion of the village had been flattened by that time. And it wasn't until the following morning the extent of the damage was appreciated, or the fact that the flood had not just affected Bridge End at Wray, but had affected other places, particularly Baxbottom Farm. So this story gradually emerged, and there had been a bit of flooding at Caton and quite a lot of flooding at Clafton as well, as this rainstorm had hit the top of the moor. But the bulk of the water had drained off down into the Roeburn and had come through Wray. So that was the story of the night.
Mm.
Of course, it was a very long time before everything was back to rights.
How old were you when the flood hit?
Yes. In 1967, I was 26, and my wife was 26 as well.
Did you lose any of your relatives?
No, we didn't have any relatives living in the village. So, however, when the story got abroad in Lancaster, my wife's mother and father were very anxious to know whether we were safe. And it took a bit of time to get a message to them that we were safe. because you couldn't get out of the village except by going through a good deal of water and debris and so on. So communications have been cut. We lost the telephone and so on. But eventually we got a message to them to say that we were all right.
Did you help clean out the houses or help rebuild them or anything?
Well, of course, fairly soon after the event, the emergency services appeared, and there were fire engines with pumps, and there were people from the council coming to assess the damage, and the first thing that had to be done was to clear the road, because there was all sorts of debris on the road down at Bridgend. There were tree trunks strewn across the road, and the stone from the demolished houses was across the road. There was a huge pile of rubble sitting on top of the bridge. The parapets of the bridge had gone, and in the days that followed, the council workmen began to clear it all up, and as soon as I was able, of course, I had to go to my work, which was a long way away. I can't remember how soon it was afterwards I managed to get out of the village and go to work, but there were at least a couple of days when that wasn't possible, and so I spent that time with loads of other people, just trying to clear some rubble off the road and help the workmen, and to check out if there were any salvageable belongings from the houses that had been rushed away, although they didn't want us to go inside the houses because they were unsafe. So we had to, most of that was done later on.
That's it.
Okay.
How clearly do you remember the flood?
Very clearly, because I'm only one of the few that have been there all the time, you know, right from the beginning. Most of the villagers were at work, and some of them were most of them were at the show at Kirby Lonsdale, because that was one of our main shows during the summer, and it was on show day, so there was a lot of people at the show.
How old were you when the flood hit?
How old was I?
Yeah.
Now, let me see. I was born 33, 33, 43, 53, 63. And it was 67, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
I must have been 34 then.
Right. Were you shocked when the river came flooding into the houses?
I was, but it was a very funny day. The sky was a funny colour, and it started by coming down here and down the river. There's a beck the other side of that little field, and it came down there right through into our buildings. And so my husband, we'd just had a cup of tea and a sandwich, and he said he was going to feed the calves and things, and he went out and he come back and he said, "Oh," he said, "there's water everywhere." He said, "I need my Wellingtons on." So he put his Wellingtons on, went back out, and it was over his Wellingtons as well. It burst the barn doors on the street next to the institute, that barn.
Oh yeah.
It burst them doors, and all the hay and straw come floating out. So then next minute somebody had reported it and said we were holding the bus up, couldn't get past for Stavely's straw on the street. So and the policeman come into the yard and he said, what's happened, Margaret? I said, I've no idea. He said, anyway, we cleared the straw onto the side, and the policeman said to me, can you take me down to the bridge, down Wennington Road? He said, there must be a lot of water in this river. So I took him down, and while I had a long wheelbase Land Rover, so I took him down and pulled up, and I thought, oh gosh, that's funny, I'm sure this bridge is cracking. I couldn't believe it. And so I said, oh, I'm turning round. So I turned my Land Rover around, come back, and then I stopped and looked over into the water with the same time as Jerry was there, Jerry the policeman. And he said, and I said, oh, I said, there must be a lot of water down the other end. I said, that chair floating down now is Miss Pell's. Well, we'd always called her Miss Pell. She hadn't been married very long. She was in her 70s when she got married. And her husband had done a chair up for her in Rexine, which you won't understand. It's sort of a material that looks like leather. And he'd done it up, and he'd put all brass little tacks all the way around, and she said to me, oh, you must come in and look at my husband, what my husband's done with my chair. So I had to have a look in, so I knew it was her chair. So Jerry said, take me back down the other end. So I took him down. I could only get so far down because of all the water, and he said, go and ring the police and ambulance. Oh, I said, whoever to ring? He said, everybody, tell them, fire brigade. And so that's when it all started, and of course it took it blocked the bridge, and that bridge, as I turned round to come away, that bridge down Wennington Road went. It just disintegrated into the river.
So were there any, you said ambulances came, was anyone hurt or?
Well, no, you see the thing was as well, as I came down the street, there was a little lad pulled up and he said, hey, there's somebody just gone down that river. He said he's putting his hands up in the air. And so I told Jerry this. He said, oh, you know, he'd sort that out. Anyway, we found out later, because it was down on our land, it was a pig of Mr. Brown's, and it had drowned. And its feet were up, two of its feet, and this little boy, he'd only be 4 or 5, says, hey, somebody trying to get out of the river with his hands up. And that's, and then of course it blocked the bridge, and not all the houses, well, some of them went all together. Mr. and Mrs. Beckwith's house, she had a little boy, so he came to live with me for a few days while they sorted themselves out, and her house went all together. She was out just in the clothes she stood up in, so I had to lend her some of my clothes. Well, I'm only short, and she was a dancer in, you know, before she got married, and she was a tall, slim lady. So it looked like a mini on her, my clothes, because she'd nothing else, you know, to give her a set of clothes to wear. And then of course and in the meantime, my husband had to carry the calves out, so we lost 1 or 2 of them because they got pneumonia. You know, it wasn't through, well, it was just with being getting wet. We had the vet, but there wasn't a lot they could do. They just deteriorated. And, yeah.
Do you have any other facts about the flood?
Do I have any facts about them?
Yeah.
Such as what?
Like facts or stories about the flood?
Yeah. Well, I've got lots of pictures at home on placards. If any of you children ever want to come down to look, or I could bring them up to the school to let you have a look. It's the houses that were damaged, and where did I put that? Oh, I did. Put it in my pocket. Now, oh look, that was the river. Now, this was taken from the barn where I live now, because I lived at Hoskins Farm. This is where, you know, where the water came from now. Who did you know? And so that's Bridge House there. That's Bridge House. It's not a very good, I don't think you'll understand it really, but I was hoping that I could show you where it was all those houses that had disappeared.
Mhm.
No, but I've got lots of photographs, and I did have a full set of all the accounts that were in the papers. But Manchester University sent some students out, and they asked if they could borrow them, and I said yes, if you give me them back. But I never got them back.
Oh.
So I lost all mine, but I have photographs of the flood and the houses that are damaged, and you can see that
So, how long did it take for Wray to get built back up again to all the houses being refurnished?
well, we were on. You had to have a permit to get into the village for a few weeks, and then they had a walk that a lot of people joined in the walk to raise funds for the flood victims.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. Not too long. We had to, of course, with no water system, so we had to have water brought to the village.
Mhm.
And see, there was no supermarkets either that you would all be used to, so there was no bottled water as such. We couldn't.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to say that?
Where is it? I can't stop. I don't know.
Who first?
You first, George, you tell us.
Oh, that particular day we was in Morecambe. There's a little Methodist chapel in Rome. It was a Sunday school day out.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, at Morecambe. So we were there, and we got in the afternoon about 3 o'clock, and it started to come on wet. It started raining very heavily in Morecambe, so we decided to go home.
And it went black,
And
didn't
as
it?
we was coming back towards Lancaster, we could see, we ran out of the rain, but we could see in the distance, up the moors where we lived, it was really black up there. By the time we got home, it hadn't started raining, but we could see it was going to do. So we just had 1 or 2 cows to come inside to some calves. So that I'll get them done before we, then quickly, and before it come on wet. And by the time we'd done that, it come on wet and it rained really heavy. And there was sort of rain flooding through a farmyard that hadn't been as bad before. I'd say it had done it before, but nothing like as bad as that. And it didn't rain only for about an hour, but really heavy.
It was black,
You
wasn't
could
it?
see, it was really black. I mean, we could see right up the moor that Mallardale fell. It was very black up there. And I went up there quite sort of a week or 2 later, and there was a place there where the water looked like it just come down, just poured down, because sods and earth was rolled up. And where it run down to a stream, below where that was, it was all washed out, and higher up it wasn't. So and there was about 4 places on the moors like that where it had been these cloudbursts, because the river didn't come up slowly, it came up in minutes. And it washed sort of all the riverbed out. I think we had about a mile of fencing to replace on the riverside. It had washed out, never been as high as that before, and I'd never seen it as high as that since. It washed. There was 2 bridges at Robindale washed out, one to Haylett Farm, one to Mallardale Farm. The bridges were washed away. And that night, Mr. and Mrs. Mickle, who lived at Mallardale, they'd been to it was Kirby Shore, they'd been there, and they couldn't get home. They slept at our house all night, didn't they? You want anything to add to that?
I don't think so.
The roadway had never been as high as, I'd never seen it flooding like that before or since.
We didn't realise what the damage it had
We
done,
didn't know,
actually.
so we didn't realise. After it stopped raining, we went down to the river to look, and we could see all the damage that had been done. And then we went to see the neighbours down at the Barking Gate, and they could look down and say that And somebody said that Wray had been washed away, you know, there'd been a lot of flooded houses, flooded and washed away.
So we went down to Wray then, didn't
We
we?
went down to have a look.
And my grandma's house was at Wray, wasn't
Yeah.
it? And they'd got out through the back window, hadn't they, onto the
Yeah.
banking at the back. Policemen helped them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was probably about 80.
Yeah. What did the damage mainly for bridges and that was it washed trees out from the riverside, and then they got the bridges, they blocked the bridge up and you know, they held the water back, and then that's what washed bridges away. And that's what flooded Wray really. The trees came down and blocked the bridge. The water couldn't run under the bridge, and it had to come round, held it back and washed these houses away. Right, over to you.
Got any questions, Ben?
Do you know how it actually hit down the whole? How did it get enough power to hit down the whole of the bridge?
How did what?
They get the water get enough power to hit down.
Well, it was this real, like this cloudburst that came down, you know, real, you know, well, it was round, it was really heavy rain, you know, it absolutely poured down, but
And it went
further
black,
up,
didn't it?
it was very black, and further up on the moors there was this cloudburst, water just sort of poured down, more or less what it looked like, and by the ground what was, you know, the sods and earth was washed, you know, sods was rolled up, and an area bigger than this room, like that, and there was about 4 areas like that where the massive volume of water coming
They
out
were
at
like a
once.
cloudburst, I suppose,
Yeah,
wasn't it, really?
And that, the river rose so fast and so much that it washed the trees out on the bankings and that blocked the bridges up. Because the Roburn Bridge at the bottom of Barking, that was all blocked up with trees, but the bridge had stood it hadn't washed it away.
But it had knocked the walls down,
They went
didn't
down the
it?
walls off the
You
top
know,
of
bottom
it.
of back
yeah,
in there,
yeah.
that bridge, yeah.
But they've been strengthening that bridge and widening it, and they've put some, you know, the big concrete slabs either side to widen it, so that has strengthened it. I think if it hadn't been for that would have probably gone.
You got any questions?
How old are you when it happened?
How old am I?
When it happened.
I'm 79 now, it's 50 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah. 29 then.
Yeah.
29, it was 29. I was 27.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yeah.
You have no more questions? No?
Round to us.
No, it should be fine. It picks up quite well.
It's got a wide angle.
Yeah, but they've each got their own. So we've got 3 things, so we can't
By
go
the
wrong.
way, it's recording, Henry. You might want to stop it.
Would you like my husband to give you what happened to us, and
Or
then
would you
you
like to ask
can
questions?
ask questions afterwards?
Yes, please.
Would that be
Yeah.
all right? Well, I wasn't in the. I had just had a new baby, so 9 days old. So I took my baby in the van up the village.
Right, well, I'll
So,
tell you how it was. We lived at Home View, whether you know where Home View is. It's about 50 metres from the bridge, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the left as you walk down the road. And the day was very similar to this, only probably hotter. And humid and overcast and thundery. In fact, there was thunder and lightning sort of rolling round the hills behind the village. And about 5:30, 6 o'clock, when we were sat down ready to have our evening meal, my wife and I, with our new baby, we lived with my wife's parents, Richard and Alice Kenyon, and your nana,
Yeah.
Mrs. Ashton. But we were just about to start, we may have started actually,
Mm.
and the lady that lived immediately across from us at Home View, June Swindlehurst, came running in, and she was quite frightened, wasn't she?
She panicked. She said they had cellars, you know, those houses, you know, where the Count and Jones lives, the next door house, the big one. We had big cellars, and the cellars were filling with water,
Yes.
and that's why she came.
Anyway, we sort of ran across back to a house, and we could see the water by then was nearly at the top of the steps from the cellar. So we all realised then, having seen this, that it was a very serious flood. The noise, one of my memories I shall never forget was the noise of that flood, of that water. There were huge, eventually when we looked at it later on, those huge boulders had been washed down from the quarry. Huge, must have weighed 3 to 5 tons, some of them. Anyway, it was really difficult to remain calm because we could see that a major flood was underway, and we thought lives could be at risk because there were elderly people living down in the cottages near the bridge. So Pat's father organised myself and another neighbour that came on the scene at that time,
Roy Dixon.
Roy Dixon. He was
Richard
the
Kenyon, Roy Dixon.
and Roy being the local plumber, and myself. Pat's father organised us with a ladder to rush down at the back of the houses to try and get people out as soon as possible. And it was clear that we were going to have to get them out of their bedrooms because by then the river was right up into the ground floor of all the cottages down near the bridge.
As you're going down the bridge, on the left-hand side.
Yeah. Anyway,
They're not there anymore.
I told my wife Pat to take our baby, 9 days old, further up into the village because we were frightened that the flood was going to just keep coming and coming. Together then, 3 of us, Richard Kenyon, Roy Dixon and myself, rushed down to the rear of the first vulnerable cottage, which was Dick Woodhouse. I went up the ladder to his bedroom window, assuming that's where he would be because he couldn't have been downstairs, it was all flooded. And he was laying on the bed fully clothed, but he wouldn't, I couldn't persuade him to come down the ladder. And Pat's father, Richard, said, well, you come down and I'll go up and speak to him because he knew him, where he didn't, I wasn't brought up in the village, so I didn't know him and he didn't know me, did he?
No.
Anyway, so Pat's father went up the ladder and tried to convince him to come down the ladder. Initially he didn't want to come, but then a great tree trunk, huge, crashed through his bedroom window at that point in time.
At the front of the house, not
Yeah.
at the back.
That was like a circumference like that. Came through the bedroom window, and at that point, Mr. Woodhouse says, "Oh well, up on a hill," and he came down the ladder then. So we then established a system for getting other people out in the neighbouring houses. Because I was the tallest, and the water was like up to here, almost over my waist anyway at that point in time. Further we went down to the river because the water's coming up like this. I'm the tallest, so I had to hold the ladder at the foot, hold the ladder steady, while Pat's father and Roy Dixon between them took it in turns to go up the ladder to get people out of the next few houses.
First one was Miss Mashiter and Mrs. Atkinson.
And it was Miss Atkinson and Miss Mashiter that
Miss Mashiter.
your mother then appeared on the scene, and I don't know where she got a wheelbarrow from, but she took the pair of them in a wheelbarrow to the top of the garden.
Old, you see, very frail.
Yeah. So this went on, the raging river. We could hardly communicate with each other because of the noise. The noise was terrible. And I, holding this ladder, had time to gaze down towards, where the river was swirling over the bridge. And I was conscious, thinking, I'm looking up at the river, thinking, well, that's that high, and I'm this high. When is it going to come and, go like that, cover us? It was very scary, very frightening. And as I say, the noise was immense. So there was an element of sign language. We tried to communicate by shouting, and nobody could hear. By the closer we got down to the end near the river, the less.
But you haven't said who you Miss Mashiter.
Well, the people we got after Mr. Woodhouse.
Mrs. Whittam wasn't there.
You mentioned Mrs. Atkinson, Miss Mashiter, taking up the garden in the wheelbarrow. Mrs. Whittam's cottage seemed to be empty, so we went on to Mr. and Mrs. Bastow,
Bastow.
getting them both safely down the ladder, followed by Mrs. Hartley and the
and
son.
son.
I didn't know a son, did you
No.
know?
Vaguely.
No. And at this point, I noticed, holding this ladder, looking at this huge, raging torrent flying by, what seemed to be a cow went by rapidly with these 4 legs stuck up in the air. It was all unreal. Assume it was a cow. Followed quickly by the top part of what looked like an estate car. I remember it was sort of green or blue. I'm not good on
Green,
greens or blues.
yeah.
And I thought, my goodness. Anyway, later
This
that
car went over the bridge.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And that car was later found down the, where was it found?
Blackbeck.
The
Do you
Blackbeck.
still call it Blackbeck, or do they
Had to be
call
dug
it
out
something
anyway.
else now?
I think it's called Bullbeck now.
Bullbeck, is it?
The in the middle where the 2 rivers join, just below.
Yeah. Anyway, at that point there, having seen this cow and seen this vehicle getting, washed down the river, I noticed that the local policeman, PC Jerry Forrest, came, and it was the last house. We were the next to the last house with the ladder. He came rushing down, and he got a plank from somewhere, I don't know where, and he put the plank from an outhouse to the bedroom window of the very last house next to the river. And he somehow got the people out of their bedroom across this plank, which, as I was looking at it, I thought was very dangerous.
It was
and
easier
difficult
going up and down that ladder.
and difficult to do.
That was Mr. and Mrs. Johnson.
Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, yeah. So that's my recollection of that particular period. I mean, there's days and days afterwards.
We can leave you this if you'd like us to leave you our account of.
This account is me as an eyewitness. It's different from what we've read in local
A lot different.
historians' accounts. But I was there. This is only. I can only say what I saw. It would be wrong of me to say anything other than what I saw and experienced. I was frightened for years later. I had nightmares.
Give you that.
I had nightmares with the sound and the fact that I think we were very lucky. People could have been drowned. And
If it
stood in the river, watching this raging torrent going by, hearing the noise, which was, I've never heard noise like it ever in my life. I'm 70 years, this was 50 years ago. I'm 70. We were newly married, we had a new baby, and since then I've worked all over the world. This is the worst incident I've ever been in. Terrible at the time. Amazing that nobody was hurt.
One funny thing that did happen, my father told me about. We had ducks in the village, used to come up the village street, and people used to feed them every day. And that night my dad said, well, the ducks have gone. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they were on the river, and when the wall hit,
There was a wall of water
came down. He said when the wall hit, the ducks were there, so he said they can't have survived. And next morning, when we all were out there, the ducks came waddled up the village.
Back up the river.
They'd managed, don't know how, but they'd managed to survive, and everybody, that really made everybody feel good, because the ducks had survived.
I think people cheered, didn't they?
Yeah.
We were clearing out houses. We were shoveling out all this mud and gunge, dead rabbits and things like that from people's houses. It was horrendous. And when these ducks came waddling up, everybody just cheered. It was amazing. Any questions?
You know when there was cracks in the building?
Yeah.
Was there like cracks for the water to get through?
The water got into the backs of the houses opposite your mum and dad's house by simply washing out big chunks of the supporting walls at the back.
Yes.
There wasn't so much cracks, it was huge, gaping holes.
It wasn't quite like, you know, when you see floods on the television where the water just rises.
Yeah.
when this big wall of water came, it brought lots of trees
Oh,
and lots of, boulders, that, nearly as big as this room, some of them that it moved,
oh.
but it didn't bring them, but it was bringing big stones, and they hit the houses, and it was the trees and the boulders
That caused that
that
damage.
caused the damage.
Yeah. Mind you, with Dick Woodhouse's, he had that big trunk that came through that bedroom window seriously damaged the front of his house.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole wall, it was demolished anyway, wasn't
Oh
it?
yeah, most of them. There was quite a few houses. There were 1, 2, 3 empty ones, and then there was a row of 1, 2, 3 other ones that were lived in, and there was no sign of them next day. They'd completely gone.
People had got out of them, luckily. And if it hadn't have been round about tea time, if it had happened in the night, I think people would have died. They would have drowned.
Lancaster University, I don't know whether you can perhaps get in touch with them, but they sent to the geology department, what they call it now, I don't know. They came and they went up the full length of the river right to where it hit to see what damage the actual flood had done, and they said it had taken what they'd done in less than an hour. It would have taken normal wear and tear 2,000 years to do. So that can tell you how devastating it was to the
thunderstorms.
quarry. And
Didn't they say that three thunderstorms had met,
Yeah.
collided,
yeah, farmer said that. He
either
said
side of the valley or the hills, on either side of the river?
it was like it all went black, and then it was like this farmer watched it and he said it was like a funnel of water that came down, and it hit the side of the fell, and where it hit the fell it rolled the turf back. Like you see them taking grass for lawns and they roll it in. Well, it rolled the turf back. It hit
Washed it
so
into the
hard,
river.
and unluckily it hit the quarry. And part of the quarry was very narrow. There was 2 like rock faces where the quarry narrowed, and it held it there for quite a while, and then broke through. So while it was being held there, it was bringing trees and getting. Once it broke through, the momentum, that's why there was like a wall that came.
Yeah, with the force of
Because
that water, it took
water,
the stones and timber
It
with
took everything with it.
How far did it go up? Did it like go all the way up to the post office?
No.
No. The flooded houses were go down the village. The houses on the right-hand side lost all the backs of the houses.
But that was from June's, wasn't it?
From June had water in, and Joneses would have
She
water
had
in the
serious
cellar.
structural damage.
Yeah, they had. But it didn't come up much further than.
The corner, really, just above your house.
No, it didn't. Our house wasn't flooded.
No, but on the corner, June's house opposite
Yeah.
was the first of those that were
Yeah,
badly
she was
damaged.
flooded at that side, but we weren't at the other side. But the water was coming over the Smiddy Brow and coming down, and so the houses on the left below Home View, there's a ginnel, isn't there? And then the ones a bit further down, they got water in. Yeah, they did, but it didn't flood Home View. Or what was the shop next door and the cottage. It was just from sort of on the left-hand side, they just got water in. The houses that were damaged.
There's Burnside and Bridge End Cottage and Burnside had a lot of water in, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
And a great deal of damage in terms of flood damage, but not structural damage.
Oh yeah.
And then all the ones below.
Burnside was lucky because the trees had piled up
Yeah.
in front
Protected
of
it.
it. So instead of hitting the house, it protected the house.
Still got.
So still got the water, and had that house afterwards, and we had to clear it out, and it was
I
stunk.
think
It
it
was
had
full
about
of dead fish and
five
dead
foot of mud
rabbits.
and goodness knows what in it.
And it was about 6 foot of water in that
Yeah,
house.
it was amazing, really.
But the houses opposite, you know, opposite the river, the other side, there's a row of cottages. They had it in the bedrooms. Miss Mushiter, that house that still stood down there, the last one on the left before the bridge, that house had it in there. They had it in the bedrooms.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it? You need to go down there and stand on one side of the bridge and just look at that last house and look at the bedroom window, and then just imagine how high that flood water was. Very, very high. And just so frightening.
My father built the bus shelter. And you know where the bus shelter is. And there's a plaque and it says flood and flood line. There's a line where the flood water came. Have you noticed that? But my dad built it, and he had to build it how they said he had to build it, and he said that the flood line should have been higher because it was higher.
Well, we know it was stood in it.
Because, you know, houses had it in the bedrooms.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Got any questions? No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So
for
this
listening.
this is part of a big project then to mark 50 years since the flood.
Yeah.
And are you writing this up, or are you going to compile all the reports and make it into a?
I don't know.
No. It'd be interesting to see what all the interviews and the final sort of.
Had you better put your name on that, because your name's not on it. You just refer to yourself as myself.
Yeah, well, because I've signed it.
Have you got a pen?
I've got it. My name's there.
Oh, it's on the end. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It might help you when you, because a lot of people say things that.
Did you live in the village at the time?
I did.
And do you have any brothers or sisters that experienced the flood?
No, I don't have any brothers and sisters at all.
When did you find out about the flood?
When I was in the middle of it, really. It started between 5 and 5:30. I lived down by the river. My father came home and he said, is it alright me wandering off like this? Or do you just want to ask questions?
Yeah, you're okay, Ted.
And he said, I can hear water. You must have left the kettle. And I said, no, I haven't. Went to the back window which overlooks the river, and there was a little wall of water coming down, not unlike the Severn Bore, if you've ever heard. A bore of water that runs up the Severn down in Avon. And in front of it there was about a dozen ducks, and they were all paddling like mad. And I can never understand why they didn't just up and fly away, as this wall of water seemed to be catching up with them. And that was my first realisation that something not right was going on.
And what did you feel when the flood happened?
Frightened. Not long after we saw the bore, I went down to the bridge at the bottom of the river, at the bottom of the village, by the tea rooms, you know where I mean? Yeah. Went into the first house, cottage rather, and helped them carry the furniture upstairs. And the water was coming through the fire grate, where the fire was. And this isn't right, this is very strange. And we came back home, and we moved my grandmother out, and I heard the greenhouse that my father had in the garden. I heard all the glass shatter, and then you get that awful feeling in your tummy that something's going to happen, and it certainly did.
Where were you during the flood?
well, up and down the street, as the water came higher, we had to move further back until we got to a point where you don't know Smithy Brow, do you? It was starting to come over there. There's a waste ground in between my house and Mrs. Hartley's. And the police came and they said, just go in and take whatever you can grab and move back up to the corner. So I'd got my handbag and my grandma's pension button. We moved back and back, and the rain never seemed to stop. So heavy and it was so dark, although it was only 6 o'clock.
And do you know how high the water got?
In feet, no, I don't.
Do you have any special memories?
Well, everything about that night, really. I mean, we couldn't go back home afterwards because it was deemed unsafe. We had no garden left. And outside the back door there was just a 10-foot drop down to bedrock. So the windows had gone. It took the frames out of in the cellar, took the frames out of the wall, and the back door was at a strange angle. So it wasn't safe to go back home. So we went to the pub.
How long did it take for Wray to come back to normal?
Oh, a long time. A long time. For a few days, a lot of people came with no electricity, no telephones, nothing.
No, if you're doing an interview this afternoon, then do not get changed. Listen, Rosie.
Oh, we are.
Well, don't get changed then. Keep up.
No, we aren't doing.
You aren't?
So, our names are Ruby and Holly.
Ruby and Holly, lovely names.
Thank you. So, have you got any stories about the flood?
Well, it was just a nightmare. When you went down the village, the houses had gone, washed away. There was 4 and a big garage, gone completely by the foundations. You couldn't see any signs where they'd been or anything. And that was all washed onto my brother's land down Wennington Road.
Yeah.
All the stones and everything. And there was a lady had a fridge washed out there. And they found that down at Skirton Bridge. Do you know where Skirton Bridge is?
Yeah.
At Lancaster. And the eggs were still in it and the milk still whole. They hadn't broken.
Wow.
So it's been washed all that way and not got broken.
Wow. It's amazing.
It was amazing, but it was frightening.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't in the flood, but I did my bit by helping the fire service and the police and things like that. You know, keeping them topped up with drinks and everything.
Yeah.
And we took people in and made what we could because there was no water, no electric, no telephone. It was a nightmare. And I had 2 small children.
Did you have to have passports to come in and out of Wray?
Yes, well, a card. Because I took my children to my sister-in-law's at Clafton. And you see, got up in the morning, got the kids ready and did a milk round in the village with my sister-in-law. Well, I come back and then I took them to Clafton. She looked after them for me for a few days and did the washing. And then I couldn't get back into the village because they'd given me a pass. And I'd left mine at home, hadn't I? So I had an awful job to get back in because the amount of people that came was just unbelievable. The village was packed out with sightseers. I don't know why people like to see disasters, but they do.
Yeah.
You know, and And we only could do the milk round to the bottom of the village, to walk round the spout to all the other houses, because the bridge wasn't safe to go over. So to leave the vehicle there and then walk round. So that took us longer. But it was, everybody pulled together. You know, everybody got together and pulled together. Didn't go to bed for 3 nights because we were frightened to go to bed. Mind you, if we'd been in the water, the village would have gone. Because I was at the other end of the village by the Georgian Dragon, down that end. You know, so, but if it's kept on, it could have come up the other way, like behind us.
Yeah.
You just don't know, do you? Water's a dreadful thing. It's hard to stop. But when it takes stone-built houses like that, without right by the foundations, and it was a miracle nobody was killed. And I think it was the time of day it happened. Because if people had gone to bed, they wouldn't have known, would they?
No.
You know, but it was happening at that time. There was one lady, she was in the kitchen, Anne Beckwith, and she felt her feet wet. She thought, oh. And she looked and the water was behind her, so she got out of the front door, and as she come out of the front door and just up the street a little bit, she saw a house door. So all she had, well most of them had, is what they stood up in, because they lost everything. And then after the flood was over, we went to help. And the rooms, from floor to ceiling, were solid with mud. And you had to scrape with your hands to try and rescue some personal things for them, you know. Because they were left with nothing. Everything had gone.
Yeah.
And you just did it with your hands and to root through to see if you could find anything for them that was summed up, you know, Memorial Farradius do them.
Do you know of any injuries that happened at the flood?
No, I don't think there was any injuries. Which when you saw the water was a miracle.
Yeah.
It really was a miracle. My brother and Mr. Forrest, the policeman, they'd gone to see what it was like down Wennington Road, and they came over the bridge, which was a humpback bridge then, where it's a flat one now, and they just got over the bridge and looked in the mirror and the bridge had gone. So they just got over before the bridge went. And then the army came in and put a Bailey bridge in. Do you know what a Bailey bridge is?
No.
Well, it's like a flat planks, and they put it straight across from one side to the other.
Yeah.
It was put up, you know, they do it very quickly, but you see, we couldn't get out. So that's why the army did that. But no, I didn't hear of any injuries. People were traumatised.
Yeah. Must have been.
You know, when you've lost everything, all you've got is what you stood up in.
Yeah.
It must be heartbreaking. The trouble was, a lot of the houses that went, people had come to Wray to retire. That was the most heartbreaking thing. And lost everything.
Yeah. How did your children find it?
They didn't love, because one was only 11 months old and the other was 2. So they didn't understand.
No.
You know, they didn't understand.
Do you know how long it lasted?
What, the flood itself?
Yeah.
Not very long.
No.
I can't really say how long, but it wasn't very long.
No, because if it had pushed some bridges over, and then it would have just gone along, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You see what happened, it brought all the trees down off the fells and blocked the bridge at the bottom of the village here. And then the water banked up and went over the house and took the houses, you see. It'd have to be a bad flood now for it to happen again, I would say, because I think it's made a passage down.
Yeah.
At Clafton, they got it at Clafton. Do you know where the Fenwick Arms is?
Yeah.
Well, it was going through the bedrooms there, was the water. So it was fairly high there. There was a man at Falcon had to be rescued out of a tree, a farmer. He got up into the tree to get out of the way of the water. And he was rescued out of the tree. But in the Wray, they did, my husband rescued a Mr. Woodhouse. They found him in bed, laid in the water upstairs. And Jerry and my husband carried him out of the bedroom window down the ladder to get him out. Because he was old and couldn't, very infirm. And he was laid in the water. That's how high it was. And his house went. But I've never seen anything like it. The mud in the houses was just solid from floor to ceiling.
And that's all from the river.
Eh?
And was that all from the river?
Yeah, the mud that it brought down.
Do you know how many houses were knocked down because of the river?
It went with 4 completely, and a big garage and a workshop. I think it was 11 houses all told had to come down. The others were all washed out at the back, There was only half of the house left.
Fascinating. Do you know how many escapes there were? Did you see some
No, I
escapes?
didn't. No, everybody got out. There was a man up Back's Bottom, I don't know whether you know where that's, a farmer. Him and his wife had got to the last bedroom when they were rescued. All the farmhouse and farm had gone. But they were all right. Traumatised, but they weren't hurt.
No.
Yeah, and the floods thing, one thing that you're not really going to forget about, are
You're not going to forget it, no. And the 8th of August rings a bell with me because I lost my father the 8th of August the year before. Then the 8th of August the year after we had the flood.
Yeah.
So I didn't want the 3rd 8th of August because I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But there was 1, 2, 3, 4 houses that went completely, and a workshop where they used to make clog blocks. And then there was Johnson's, Mrs. Rawlinson, Mrs. Wright and Mrs. Rawlinson. Their houses were so badly damaged they couldn't go in. The dirt was incredible. And then at the other side of the road there was Miss Pell's, Mr. and Mrs. Dixon, Mrs. Whittam, which you know all about. She died not so long. She was 100.
It's last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. And all their houses went. See, we knew everybody then, because with having a milk round in Wray, we knew everybody that lived in every house.
What time did it start?
Well, it started raining about 5:30, because I was bathing the children. And I think it was 6:30 when it finished, and it did rain. Well, there was a cloudburst, you see, up Rovendale.
Yeah.
But only half of it came our way, thank God. They said the other half went down Yorkshire way.
Yeah.
What year was it?
1967. 8th of August 1967.
What was the year the village got all to normal?
Oh,
Back to
God.
normal.
Well, the people that lost their houses lived in caravans on the school field, your playing field.
Yeah,
I would say for about 6 years.
that's a long time.
It's a
Yeah.
long time to live in a caravan.
Yeah. Because you see, they'd build new houses for them, which are down Wennington Road. We call them the flood houses, opposite the police station.
Did they have to pay for the caravans, or was that just...
I have no idea on that score, because the vicar went on the telly that night, put an appeal out. Well, it was not long after the Abbey one in Wales, where there was a lot of school children drowned. Trouble is, people had given money and it didn't go to the proper place, so I think Wray suffered over that. You know, it just stopped people giving.
Do you know who did the, down at the flood gardens, the pebbles?
No, I don't really love it. It was after I left Wray.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where did you go to once you'd left Wray?
went to live at Carnforth. We sold the house at Wray and went and got a bungalow. Which is a good job we did, because now I've lost my eyesight. Because I can't see you there, love. I can just see your shape.
Yeah.
And I would never have coped to you at Wray. In a big house. Because everything has to be put back in the proper place.
Yeah.
You know, I go into the fridge, I get all sorts out for my dinners. It's a surprise. When I've cooked it, I don't know what it is you see, because I can't read what's on the packet. But no, Wray Flood it did make everybody pull together though. You know, everybody clubbed and pulled together.
Yeah.
And I was in the institute with the police taking them a drink. A week later, and telephone went and he says, oh, and there was a warning. There was a cloudburst up Rovendale. He said to me, where's Rovendale at? I says, where the last one came from. He said, oh my God. You know, anyway, that come to nothing. You know, they were from Lancaster, so they didn't know the area properly, all of it.
Yeah. How high did it get, do you know?
Ooh. Well, it was going over the top of the houses,
Yeah.
so it was a fair height, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when I went round the corner, it was just black boiling water going over this house, what I call Anne Carrington's. I think she'll still live there. You know, but you see, it's 19 years since I left Wray. And I think that'll be I think her name's Anne Jones. Now. I don't know who lives next door to her, because I don't know very many people in Wray now.
Yeah.
Because all the older ones have gone, you see.
Yeah.
But it was very frightening,
Yeah, it must have been.
because where I was going to go, I only had a minute. Where I was going to take my mother and the kids, I hadn't a clue, because we couldn't get out of the village. But that was my first reaction.
Especially when you had the other rain clouds.
Yeah, you know,
Over Rivendell.
it was a stupid reaction, but that was my first reaction. I'm taking my kids and my mother out of it. You know,
Yeah.
and I couldn't have got anywhere. You don't know how you react on these things till it happens to you.
No. I can imagine it being really frightening.
It was very frightening. And at that point we didn't know who was dead or alive or anything, and when they got them all counted up, they were all alive, thank God.
Yeah.
You know, if it had happened later in the night, well, there'd been a lot drowned.
Yeah.
because the houses would come down on them, you see, they'd just be washed away with the house.
It's a miracle that they all got out safely.
It was a miracle, yes it was. We were blessed some way or other.
What were the cards like, the things that you had to coming out with the village?
Oh, I don't know now. They were just a postcard to say that you could, it was a pass. You know. But when you were busy, there was the last thing in my thought of picking it up.
Yeah.
Didn't, anyway, one policeman wouldn't let me in, but another policeman come that knew me. And he says, oh, it's all right, she lives in Wray. And at this end, you know. So they let me back in. Because they weren't going to let me back in.
Yeah, because you've got to be cautious that you're not letting a stranger in.
Well, that's it. Because there were so many people came. A lot were relations to see if the families were all right.
Yeah, you would do that, wouldn't you?
Which was natural after they'd seen it on the television. And a lot left the cars at home and walked to Wray. But at one stage, well, it would be like Wray Fair Day. There was that many people there to come and look at it.
Wow, that's a lot.
There was a lot.
Did you let the relations in from the people?
Pardon, no?
Did you let the people who knew each other come in to...
We asked anybody in. The house door was open to anybody that wanted a drink, cake or anything. Because on the Wednesday I went into my pantry and I had nothing left. So I had to go shopping. I didn't forget my pass that day. You know.
So did you let people into the village who, to other people's houses who knew each other?
I don't know what the police did on that score though. A lot of people didn't get in that should have got in, you know. They just had to take their word for it.
Yeah.
Because there was no communications with no telephone or anything. There were no mobile phones then, was there?
No.
But it was just the blessing that nobody was hurt
Yeah.
and nobody lost their lives.
Yeah, seeing all those photos of how bad it was, and now look at the beautiful place in the
That's it.
memorial.
Yeah. I don't know who built that. It was after I left Wray. It was about 17 years since I left. Because I've lived in Wray since I was 10.
Yeah, like when you went to the institute to see the photos, it's like unbelievable that they could just like bring it back. And there must have been loads of
Has there been
teamwork.
one in the institute?
Yeah, we had a big display at Scarecrow.
Oh yeah, I never got to that. Because they knocked all the buses off, you see.
Yeah.
And you can't get now to Wray.
No.
Well, if you get, you can't get back again.
Yeah.
Because if I come to Wray, I have to go to Lancaster first, then from Lancaster here.
Yeah.
You know, same going back to Lancaster and then to Carnforth. I can't get a bus straight here. It used to take me 2.5 hours to get here. When I was visiting my sister-in-law. But it caused a lot of work for my brother. All his fences were washed out down his fields. And all the rubble was all dumped. What we call the cow pasture, where the cows used to sleep. Thank God the cows were in being milked when it happened. Otherwise they would have gone.
Yeah. Did your brother have a farm?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was at Proctor's farm, which isn't a farm anymore.
No. But it must have been scary for him because all his cattle might have gone and
Yes,
his
but he had the cattle in the shop, and you see, shipping, milking. Otherwise they would have gone. But all his fences and everything and walls were all washed out.
Yeah.
They were all flattened. You see, the river goes right down then and it meets up with the Wenning and then goes to Hornby. So there was a lot of water,
Yeah.
and water's bad to stop.
Yeah.
Once it comes, you can't stop it.
No, you just got to do all you can to try and.
Yeah, it's the amount that there was there. And I've never seen anything like it in my life, and I don't want to see it again.
No, you wouldn't.
No.
How frightening I think it sounds. I wouldn't want to experience that.
You know, it was frightening.
Yeah.
That's why we never went to bed of a night. We didn't go to bed for 3 nights.
I wouldn't.
Because we were frightened of it coming again, you see.
Yeah.
I think most people wouldn't be able to sleep because.
No, they didn't.
I certainly wouldn't because I would just be too scared that the flood might come back.
All our chairs were full in our house, and some laid on the bed, but not many. You know, we just had to buckle down and help.
Yeah.
Because they'd lost their homes, there's nowhere to sit.
It's very kind of you to bring people into your house.
Well, it's what you do to neighbours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you help one another as much as you can.
Mm.
It's but it took my brother about 3 months to clear all the rubble off his land.
Wow.
Wow.
And there's one thing he said in the June, you know, water hens on the river
Yeah.
that build the nests in the banks of the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, down the cow pasture by the river, they built the nest in a big post, dug the top out. And he said he didn't like that. They knew there was something going to happen. And then the flood come, you see. That's why he lived up there.
Wow.
Wow, that's interesting.
Nature knows what's going to happen.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's like with sheep and with cattle and a tidal wave, they all back away.
Yeah. Yeah. And he said there's something going to happen, there's going to be a flood or something for it to build its nest up there.
Yeah.
So it knew.
That's amazing.
Whether it lost its eggs or not, I don't know. Whether it come up to top of post, I can't answer that one.
No. But that's amazing.
But they always say watch nature. It's like with crows, if they build the nests halfway down the tree, they say it's going to be a bad summer. If they build it at the top of the tree, it's going to be a good summer.
Yeah.
They're better than the forecast people.
Yeah.
You know.
You get crows to do the forecast for us.
You know, they do. They get it more right than what they do.
Yeah.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
I worked at a school for 35 years. Tatum Fells, Lawgill School. With the children. Okay, I hated it when I was at school and then finished off working in the school. It'll be 14 years since I finished there. They made me retire, which I didn't want to, but I had to.
Yeah.
It got frightening though when you with children in school. And the next thing you knew, they were coming to school with their children. Now that got frightening because you wondered where that time had gone. And that happened a lot.
Just to imagine that's really frightening.
And the flood was just like so quick in such a short time that it
That's
just
it.
destroyed it.
Yeah, because that day I'd been out with the children walking, and there were hay timing down Harvey Road. That's when you could walk with a pram on Harvey Road. It wouldn't be safe now, but you didn't see any cars hardly. And they used to love watching tractors.
Yeah.
And I was out walking with them. You know, it was a beautiful day.
Yeah.
And then it come 5 o'clock at night, it darkened in and wham, it came with a vengeance.
It's just unpredictable.
Yeah. You seen it would travel, it would get some speed up the tops, coming downhill
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
to the village.
Scary.
But the pit houses at the other side of the, you know, some houses across from where the garden is,
Yeah.
there's 3 houses there, 2 houses, no, 3 houses.
Yeah.
They were untouched.
Seriously.
Yeah, they were untouched. It
I
all
live
come
in
to,
one of those houses.
it
across
all
the
come to
flood
this
garden.
side. Yeah, they weren't touched.
Oh, wow.
And then everything else was, it's just like so, it was like, it must have been so frightening, and then also we'd just be shocked
Yeah,
as well.
when
You
it
would-
happened so quickly.
Yeah, and you wouldn't know what to do, would you?
No. See, when that lady said to me, quick, there's a disaster down the village, I thought, what's she talking about? Never dreamt that it was anything like that.
No.
I knew it had rained hard, but I never dreamt that it was anything like that.
No. And it's, yeah, you just never forget it.
No, you don't. No, you never forget it.
Wow.
But the kids were little, they didn't understand.
No, I wouldn't understand either. I'd just be just so shocked.
Yeah, they were too small,
Mm.
which was probably a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing that no one got hurt as well.
It was a miracle. Nobody got hurt. Because down the bottom end of the village, there were big planks across the road and mud and stone, you name it, it was there to fill the road up. There was probably a lot of stuff washed out of the houses as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and the mud just covered to all the houses' walls.
It just solid, blocked it, the house is solid with mud from floor to ceiling. You had a job to get the door open to get in.
And then you just want to just get them from the thing that was there.
Well, we just tried to scrape it out and try and rescue anything we could. We didn't get much.
Yeah, and just to think that they had nearly lost everything.
They had lost everything.
Especially the people who had lost their houses.
Yeah, and
Well-
they'd lost all the personal things and everything.
Yeah.
And especially the retired people.
Yeah.
Must have been absolutely.
You know, because they'd worked all their lives, retired, got themselves comfortable, and then they just lost everything.
Yeah.
It was
And then
heartbreaking.
had to go back in.
And they'll have had
caravan.
memories of their life, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's just all ruined now.
And you'd feel like it was something unrepairable, and you'd just be so, like, you might have, and if you're in a caravan for 6 years,
It would be nearly 6 years they were in them caravans.
yeah,
Because they had to wait for the land to be bought, because it was belonged to the church. That had to go through, and then they had to wait till they built 2 bungalows and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 houses.
Yeah.
So they had to wait for them being built, you see.
yeah.
I'm just trying to think if anybody moved away. I think the Beckwiths, they moved away.
Well, you would probably move away if you knew something like that could happen.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
But
No,
they were younger people, you see. They could start afresh somewhere else.
Yeah. And now I only live across the road from the river, the Flood Gardens.
Whereabouts do you live?
It's a white door, and it's just across the Flood Gardens.
Oh.
Yeah,
And to
just
think
to think that.
Yeah.
Frightening.
Well, it was going through them houses as well.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it. Like, I've known about the flood, but I've never known so much about the flood.
It's really interesting to
Yeah.
think it was just like that.
Mm.
Well, you couldn't get down that part of the village at all.
No.
There was that much water. Because Big Jerry and my husband, they went round back of the houses together and ran out of his bed.
Yeah, and Emmeline came in, Emmeline Garner, and she showed us some pictures in her book, and you could just see how much the houses had been destroyed and everything.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of photographs somewhere, but I couldn't look around because I can't see them, you see, so you might have got anything. So I thought, well, it's no good be doing that. It'd confuse you.
Yeah. It's really interesting learning all these facts that happened in our village.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just knowing that something just happened like that.
In such a short time.
Mm.
You know. It was, well, it was a good job it only happened like, quick like that. I don't think they would have any village left.
Yeah.
Because from the corner down, there wouldn't be a house where it wasn't, the floodwater wasn't in. Apart from them at the other side of the river, they were all right.
Yeah.
It all come this way, you know, to the left-hand side.
And you just really wouldn't want to sleep on it because you would be so
You were just frightened that it was coming, yeah, you were just frightened it was going to come again.
What if I fall asleep? What if it comes and no one's there?
Yeah.
And you just be...
Yeah. But the firemen and the police they were brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're glad we had them because...
Well, I don't know what we'd have done without them.
No.
Because they brought us water, and that was our main thing. When you've no water, it's surprising how much water you use. You'd seen all that water and then you turn the tap on, you'd no water.
Yeah.
You know.
And yeah, because we once had a couple of water shortages, and like they're even quite big for some people. Like when you're in school, you think, oh no, there's a water shortage. But then when you think more, they had way less than that. It was for ages, not just a day.
No.
It was just...
It went on for ages. I can't tell you how long it went on for, but it seemed to be a long time.
Yeah. And seeing that now it can be quickly repaired, and underneath the bridge now there's
and they used to bring
floods,
big tanks of
things.
water into the village in the morning and stand outside the institute, and everybody used to go and collect the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Trouble was, when I got back off the milk round, it had all gone. So the fireman did mine for me, you know.
Yeah.
But I went, after I retired at school, I went on to caring, you know, where you go to help people make the meals, take them shopping and things like that.
Yeah.
And I went to this new client in Carnforth, knocked on the door. I said, I've come to take your wife shopping. Oh, right, look. He says, I know you. Oh, I'd never seen him before, as I knew of. And he said, where do you live? So I said, well, Cragpank. Oh, I don't know you from there. Then he says, "Where did you live?" I said, "Wray." Shouted to his wife. He said, "This lady doesn't go out of the house without a cup of tea and a cake, any time." Because he said, this lady looked after us at Wray Flood. He said, she kept us going with brews all the time and cake. See, he hadn't forgotten.
Oh, that's really
And that's only going back a few years.
And it's nice to think that you did something and some people now still remember.
Would still
that you did
remember it.
things
Yeah,
That to them.
yeah. It shook me, did that. And they were so nice with me.
Yeah, and just what you give, it
Yeah.
And
does
you
come
just
back.
bumped
It does.
into someone just like that, doing your job, and
Yeah. And his wife was lovely. And he used to take her shopping. Then when I come back, he had kettle on and a plate of cakes there ready. And I couldn't come out of the house. He wouldn't let me out of the house till I had one. You know,
It's really sweet.
because in that time I used to do a lot of baking.
Yeah.
My tins were always full of cakes and biscuits and stuff.
And do you still know some people from that day?
From the flood,
Yeah.
well, I knew them too. It was the year before. Margaret Preston and
You must be starving. I forgot about you. We're going to have to stop you because we...
Did you live in the village at the time of the flood?
I did, yes. Can you tell me what year it was in? Have you remembered?
1967.
Right, that's right. And what date? Do you remember?
No.
8th of August.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Do you have any brothers or sisters that
I
experienced
do.
the flood?
I do. Well, my brother lived here, I think. Hasn't Mr. Smith that's just done it?
Yes.
Did he live here when the flood was on?
He was...
In Newcastle, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, he wasn't here, and my sister lived at Hornby,
Oh.
and my big sister lived in Lancaster.
And when did you find out that the flood had happened?
I found out about, well, it had started to happen when I came back from town. I had two, are you recording this? I had two little boys. One was 3 and one was, did we say July? So that's May, June, July, 3 months old. And Mrs. Alice Wright, who is sadly no longer with us, she lived opposite me. I lived right down the village near the bridge. And so she said, well, I'll look after the boys while you go to town. Because I wanted to get Mark a little christening jacket because he was 3 months old and he was going to get christened. So off I went to town. It was a red hot day. It was really, really hot. I do remember it being very hot. Anyway, I went to town and I came back on the bus. I got off the bus and I went into my own house and just put my shopping on the settee like you do in my handbag, and then went across the road to collect my boys. And Alice said, oh, come and have a cup of tea. And she said, and come and look at this. So I went and had a cup of tea and looked out of her back kitchen window. And the river was out of her back kitchen window, was really flooded. And so while we were talking and doing, I can't remember about what time, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Would it be about 5 o'clock when it was at its worst? I'm thinking. Anyways, all these trees were coming down the river and it was raging and making a big noise. So I said, I think we ought to get out of here. I think I'll take the kids home. Well, when I come out, the river had already blocked up at the bridge and it was coming up the main street, very high and very brown and very noisy. It was noisy. So I put Mark, the little baby, in his pram. I grabbed hold of John's hand and we set off. And I'd forgotten all about his little christening jacket and I'd left it on the settee. And set off because my mum and dad used to have the Georgian Dragon. So I thought I got to mum and dad's, I'll be safe up there. So I'm running up the street towards the post office and running. And the river stopped coming behind me at about, the corner there where you go around the corner.
just before that corner, it sort of got there, nearly as far as that, and quite high. So off I did, and I went to my mum. So that was the main part of the. What was the question you asked me?
When?
Where was I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I was.
And what did you feel when the flood happened?
Well, I didn't feel. It was very. I didn't expect it to flood, really. I was quite shocked. I was too busy seeing to the children, as you do when you're a mum, too busy herding the children into safety. So I wasn't what you could say frightened or too worried. I just knew I had to get out of the way, really.
And have you any idea how high the water got?
Well, to give you an example, in my cottage, which is still there down that side of the bridge, as you're going to this side of the bridge, but that side of the road, in, you know where the garden centre is, the flood gardens, where you sometimes go and sit. It's dead opposite there. And the water, to me, although I kept looking back, it was following me up. It was high, but I couldn't say in feet, I can't remember, but it was getting higher and higher. And when I went back to my house the day after, it had got that far up the lounge wall. So I'd say in my house, it had got up to about 6 foot, at least, because the lovely christening gown, the christening jacket that I bought Mark for his christening, was laid on the settee, all covered in mud and dirty and smelly. The whole house smelled. And I thought, well, I didn't have to get that christening jacket either. So it was high. In my house, I wasn't there when it was that high because I'd left very quickly. But I would say in my house it would be about 6 foot.
And how long did it take for Wray to come back to normal?
Well, everybody will have a different idea of this. It's very hard to remember because it's, 50 years ago now? The camaraderie, friendships and that were very strong. Everybody helped everybody. So everybody helped to save what you could out of your houses, and everybody came to help you clean it out and all that. So to get back to normal, it would be a few years, because a few years to be absolutely normal, but it was soon back to normal in as much as those that didn't have houses, they built them very quickly, those bungalows on Winnington Road. And so it's very hard to say, but it was wonderful the whole time. But it was a wonderful village, as you know yourself. Before, everybody's always friends and everything, but after the flood, everybody was really, really friendly. It was called Great Camaraderie, and it was just wonderful. We all pulled together. But in total, I can't remember when I got back into my house, because it had to be dried, and they put them big blowers in and had to dry it all out. So I'd say quite a while.
And do you have any other facts you'd like to share with us?
Any other facts? Like?
I don't know.
What else would you think you would like to know? I think I've told you all about the camaraderie. I've told you all about the water. I've told you about everybody working together at the end. And then after the flood, I must say that the village had gone up a level, and it has remained. I don't think it did the village any harm in the end, because it remained one of the nicest villages that you could ever go to. And people do like to come and live at Wray. And I think it's because the friendships and that are all still there. And school, I used to do a lot for the school. I was chairman of governors for years, and I used to do lots for your dad and all and what, and everything, and your mum's. And so I just think, although it was a horrible thing, nice things came out in the end, so that was good.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
Wow. I hope it's all right. Have you got to write it all down now?
Okay, my name's Ruby, and
I'm Holly.
And we're going to be interviewing you. it says on our sheet you were a child.
Yeah, that's right. I was 11 years old.
So how did it feel being a child in big flood?
It was quite frightening.
Yeah.
We had been to Lancaster, and when we were on our way home, it started to rain, and we got stuck in the car up in Robindale by the Pointer, and we had to get out of the car and walk down into Wray. And when we got into Wray, the flood had started, and we couldn't find my dad, and we were frightened, and then we were sent to somebody's house while Mum tried to find Dad, and we had to stay there. Well, Mrs. Stephenson that came in, that was her house we went to, and we had to stay with her mother until somebody came for us, and that was probably maybe 10:30 at night, and we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know whether Mum had found Dad or he'd drowned or whatever. And then when eventually Dad came for us, and they carried us over the bridge by your house. So I lived next door to you at Home Farm. And we went to stay with an aunt, and then the next morning when we came back into the village, we could see the devastation, and our house was flooded up to the windows, downstairs windows. So it was like all silt and mud and things. So we had to, for quite a long time, we had to sort of live upstairs. But it was frightening. We were worried. Yeah. So
where did you get your house flooded?
Our house got flooded when my dad had noticed that there was something wrong. He'd looked out the window and he'd noticed that there was people sort of running about and outside. So he went out of the back door, and by the time he'd gone out of the back door, the water had come up the alleyway from your, between your house and ours, and so when he opened the back door, the water knocked him off his feet into the kitchen, and anyway he managed to get himself out and shut the door, but the water still got in, and but your house, there was an old lady lived there, and that when I came back into the village the next day, your house, because it stands more forward than ours, your house was full of the water was coming through bedroom windows. It had come through the bedroom windows, and your house was like full of silt, more or less the downstairs. And my dad, he rescued with the policeman two old ladies that lived in Bridge End, which is the big house at the end, past yours, Bridge End, and they were in their 90s, and one was sat on the cooker and one was sat on the fridge, and they were floating in the water, and they climbed, the policeman and dad went into the house and they lifted the two old ladies off the the cooker and that, and lifted them up into the garden, because the gardens are high and they've got like a backyard, and they got up onto the garden and started walking up the garden, and the water came through the bedroom window. So my dad and the policeman saved those two ladies. So it was a bit scary. And when I know my dad used to say that at the beginning, when he shut his eyes, all he could see was the water. He had nightmares and that about it. So it wasn't very nice. No. And when we came back into the village the next morning, there was all tree stumps on our front, where we parked the cars. It was just like piled up with tree stumps, and it was awful. It was awful.
Must have been. Must have been really frightening.
Yeah, it was frightening. And the next day it was a lovely day that day, and then the next day it was hot again, and it was just a freak storm. So
And we had also interviewed somebody else who said there was a rainfall like a week after, and they were like terrified.
Yes, and it did flood again. Well, it didn't flood, but it came up very high, and everybody was frightened again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would
that's
have
right.
been.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I had a brother. He was 7. I don't know whether he'll remember as much as I did, but we were really frightened when we were at this lady's house because we didn't know this lady, and we were wet because we'd had to get out the car and get through the flood up in Robindale, and there was no electricity, so there was no lights, and we didn't know this old lady, and we sat there waiting, and we were worried.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know whether you'd had a drowned or not.
Yeah.
And then we eventually did come back to the house, but mostly we had to live upstairs. I think the kitchen was in use, but we had a portable toilet out in the shed outside, and we were fortunate that our house didn't have as much damage as some, so we didn't have to have it knocked down as yours was, and the next 2 down. But the others, like the ones across the street, had no backs of their houses. All the backs had gone, and the ones further down than your house that went sort of like round the corner, they had no front, so you could see everything. You could see all the beds hanging out, and everything. It was like a doll's house, where you take the door off and you can see in, and that's how it was. Yeah.
That must have been so confusing when you were just a child.
Yeah, it was. You can. Some people say, "Oh, I can't remember," but I could remember as if it was yesterday.
Yeah.
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 Everything that happened and that.
It's not going to be a thing that you're going to forget, is
it? No, it isn't. I once went on holiday to Devon, and we went to Lynmouth, and they'd had a flood similar to us. And it had washed houses and things away, but people had died in theirs because it happened in the evening, in the night, and so people had been washed, lost.
Yeah, because they would have been asleep.
Because there was some houses that were washed away completely, like opposite our house and just a little bit further down. There was nothing left of them at all. They're just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember that. There was like people had lost their cars and stuff, and they found them down like on the loon or something in sand, and no, it was scary. Anything else?
Have you got any interesting stories about it?
Interesting stories. When we went to Lancaster. We'd gone to Lancaster shopping, and I was going to get my new school uniform because I'd got a scholarship at the grammar school, and so it was dead exciting. Got up in the morning really excited because I was going to get this uniform. And when we got out of the car, because when we were in the car and it started coming up through the bottom of the car, the water, we had to jump out, left everything, didn't lock the car up or anything, and when eventually we went back for the car, everything was just there. School uniform was there. Everything. Nobody pinched it or anything. So I remember your house.
Yeah.
Afterwards, when everybody came to help, the old lady that was there had the parquet floors like you had.
Yeah.
And she had white Persian carpets, like pieces on the thing. And I can remember that the fire brigade came and they pulled these carpets out of your house, and they hosed them all down, and then they were taken away to a cleaning depot somewhere, and then eventually when she got her house back to normal and she had the parquet floor done again and she moved back in, the carpets came back, and they stayed in that house until she sold it, and she sold it with the carpets in to another couple, and they kept the carpets for years and years afterwards. So they were really
Yeah.
good carpets, but I can remember them dragging them out and the fire brigade hosing them all down and things
Yeah,
like
that's
that.
interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know if there were any accidents in the flood?
What sort of accidents?
Like if they got hurt?
I don't think there was. No, I don't think there was. I think everybody, the people whose houses washed away got out of them. And as far as I know, nobody had an accident. No. I remember the policeman saving somebody else as well, and he'd had to get them out over a ladder with the water underneath. Have you interviewed the policeman or not?
We haven't.
You
no,
haven't.
somebody
else has. Yeah. But no, I'm sure there was nobody injured. No.
No.
So, but the village, like it always does, pulls together.
Yeah.
Everybody helped each other, and life went on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Some people moved. Some people that didn't have a house, well, they stayed with relatives to begin with, and then one or two moved out of the village altogether and found somewhere to rent in other villages. And then, but there was some of them that had caravans on the school field, and they were like around the school field, and they were, I can't remember how long they were in there for, but they were in there for quite a long time. And then they built the houses on Wennington Road, and they moved into those. Yeah. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 of them. So 6 people got new houses. Yeah.
It's amazing seeing pictures of that, and now looking at that amazing place in our village.
Yes, it is. It's a nice area now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because when I was a child, we used to just play on the street because there was very few cars, and we used to play rounders on the street and tin can lurky and things like that. Like hide and seek and stuff on the street. But yeah.
Do you know the name of who did the memorial?
Who did the memorial?
Fish and things on there.
Mrs. Maggie Howarth did help do the memorial. They did that for the millennium. But Mrs. Howarth lives at Wennington, and she does the mosaics. That's her job, and she did the design, and then all the villagers helped, and I think they collected pebbles from the river. A lot of the pebbles came from the river. I didn't help, but a lot of people did, and then on her sort of design, they got it all together and did that. It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really pretty.
Yeah, and it shows how ferocious the river is, or how ferocious water is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And in such a short time.
And such a short time, because our house, because it stands back, you wouldn't have thought that it would have flooded. But my aunt lives where, how can I describe? When you go round the spout, and you go up as if you were going up to Margaret Wright's, and there's those houses along there where Simon lives. My aunt lived in the first one there, and she was away on holiday. And when we contacted her, she was sure that her house would have been flooded and gone because she was so near the river. But when we told her house was fine and that our house was flooded, she couldn't believe it. Because she'd said to her husband, well, there's no point in us going home, might as well just carry on with the holiday because our house won't be there anyway. And it was, and her house was fine and ours was flooded. But I think ours was flooded because hers was on the straight stretch of river and ours was blocked by the bridge with the trees. So that's why it all backed up and then came down the street. It came up opposite where Helen Stavely lives, up that thing. It came up there and then right down. Can't imagine how high it must have been.
Yeah.
And the noise of the river was really loud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of harder to get rid of water than it is fire in.
Yes, yeah, and it leaves, you know, you've got all the silt and the deposits and everything. We had flag floors in our house, which is like a piece of flag on soil, and so we had to have all the floors dug out and then have new floors put in, because they were never ever going to dry, because it had so much water in the soil that it would have taken years for them to have dried out. So then we had them all dug out and redone, and that. And they had like, they used, like, obviously, like every disaster, people come to view, and they used to have collection buckets out on the streets collecting, you know, money to give to the fund for people that had lost everything. I mean, those houses that got washed away, then people lost everything. Nothing. They didn't have anything, only the clothes that they stood up in, really.
Yeah.
And then about a year later, they had a sponsored walk. I think it was about 25 miles, and to raise money. But I didn't do the sponsored walk because I broke my leg, so I didn't go. But so a lot of my friends went on it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
So they did raise a lot of money, but I suppose in today's climate, it wasn't a massive amount of money, but it was a lot then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I assume it helped people. You know, they all had a share of the money who'd lost their houses and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so did you help with clearing out your getting all your house?
Yeah, I helped
back
clear.
to normal?
Well, I suppose I did a little bit. I mean, I didn't do a massive amount. I was only 11. But Mum and Dad did most of the cleaning up, and then we just had to live like that until we could manage to get back to normal again and got electricity and stuff. But the one thing that when my dad was leaving the house, the only thing that he saved before he went out was the TV, and he took the TV upstairs because he thought, well, if he was going to get flooded, he didn't want to lose his TV, so he took the TV upstairs.
And can you imagine how scary it must have been for your brother, seeing because he was only 7?
Yeah, yes. He didn't. I don't know. He doesn't talk about it a lot, but we were scared.
Yeah.
And we were crying.
Maybe he was a bit confused.
Yeah.
Only 7.
Yes.
He wouldn't know what was happening.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. And I had to try and sort of remember trying to stop him from crying and things like that.
Yeah.
And that, you know, everything would be fine. But we didn't know that at the time. And the thing was, we didn't have mobile phones or anything like that. So when we did leave the village, and Dad came for us and he carried us over the bridge, we managed to get in touch with our aunt, my aunt, who lives at Wennington, and how on earth they got in touch I do not know, because there was no phones were working or anything, but they must have managed to get a message via somebody else from the other side of the bridge that had gone to tell her. Yeah. And then she came to pick us up, and well, I didn't stay with her because there wasn't enough room, so I had to stay with the milk lady, who I didn't know, and stayed with her for a couple of nights until we managed to find space for us all.
Yeah.
And but I don't know how they managed without mobile phones. So everybody uses a mobile phone nowadays, don't they? And,
yeah, they do.
And
were you on your own with your brother?
In the house, no, well.
No, when you were when you came back from when the floods and you went to the.
When we went to the lady's house, yes, Mum took us, and because she said she'd have to go and look for Dad, and she said you'll be all right here, stay here. I don't know this lady, and and she didn't have much conversation because she was old, and and nobody else came. Nobody else came to see if we were all right. We were just like told to stay there until somebody come for us.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was quite difficult really.
Yeah.
If you were older, would you think it was still as frightening? Or?
I think it would be still frightening, yes, but there's so many floods nowadays, isn't there?
Yeah.
People, you know,
Remember the one last year?
Yeah, and you know, like in other places where you know, like all streets and things get flooded. It seems to be a lot more common nowadays. And,
yeah.
And but that in those days was quite rare, really.
Yeah.
I think it was caused. Well, so they say. I think it was caused by a cloudburst up in Robindale.
Yes.
By two clouds meeting and then having the thunderstorm.
Yeah.
But I think the main of the damage was caused because the bridge got blocked with the trees.
Yeah, and then
it
because it was
like
such a short time.
Yes.
And because all the trees got clogged up together, didn't it push down the bridge in the end? And because it was a short amount of time, the water just rushed down.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was over in half an hour?
Half an hour, yeah.
Did you find the flood very scary when you were?
We didn't really know. I don't know. We didn't. You couldn't believe. We could, as children, we couldn't believe what we were seeing.
Yeah.
And we couldn't go any further. Because when we come down from Robindale, we only managed to go around to where the corner is before Mrs. Hartley. Yeah. So that's about as far as we could get.
Yeah.
Because the water was still coming over. So it was like, you know, it was loud, and
you were just a bit confused.
Yeah, and we were just worried that, you know, well, where's Dad? And we kept asking people, had we seen Donald Parker? And it was like, no, we haven't seen Donald Parker. But those houses at the bottom of the village have been washed away, but we haven't seen Donald Parker. And you're thinking, oh dear, he must have drowned or something.
Yeah.
And then your mum wasn't with you and you'd be like, oh no, what if she's drowned?
I know. And so she just left us and said she'd have to go and find out, and anyway she did, and he was fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what year all the houses were rebuilt back in May?
I'm not sure. I think it was made 1969 maybe, I don't know. The flood was in 1967 and maybe 1969. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't remember. But I know that they were all on the school field because I used to go and see a couple of ladies, visit them when you know, when they were there.
Yeah.
And there was I think where the vicarage is, that was a Sunday school, so they could like do the washing and stuff like that in the Sunday school, and yeah. But they were I think there'd be about 8 caravans maybe. I don't really know. But you'll have interviewed some people that were living in unless they've died, some people that did live in the caravans. Yeah.
Did you lose all of your water and electricity? Did that all go?
Yes, at the time. Yeah, I don't know how long it was before. Before, and and like all the things that downstairs, most of the things that were downstairs in the house, we lost. Furniture and things like that. They were all flood damaged, and you got insurance. You could get insurance claim on them. Children's toy, you know, like my brother had like little toys and things, and they all sort of got damaged and washed away.
Yeah. It's weird seeing us had this really big loads of water, and then you have no water coming out of your tap.
No, I know. Yes, I know. And then no electricity and
Yeah.
How long did you lose your water and electricity for?
no, I can't remember. For quite a while, I would think. I think they used to have they brought water in tanks for people to use.
Yeah.
But I think because we stayed with our aunt for for a little while, so they had electricity at theirs.
Yeah.
So, and water. But it was quite a while before we got back to normal. All of the summer holidays really we were in a mess. And
Did you just stay in Wray for your summer holidays then?
no, we never went away. We just stayed at home, stayed around really, and there was that much going on, people doing things, and then I remember when they did eventually knock those houses down, them that had fronts or backs. I can remember them bulldozing those down. There's a little video on Facebook at the moment I've seen of a little video of the bulldozers bulldozing the houses down. Yeah, that must have been quite sad for the people that owned them.
Yeah.
Seeing the houses go. And yeah.
And I think you were a child then.
Yeah. Have you interviewed any more children? No.
We haven't.
No.
The first one,
Yeah. I know somebody else came yesterday that was the same age as me, a man. That had been the same age as me.
What's his name?
Robert Marshall. Bob Marshall.
I think they're
Ben.
Yeah. And I think he wants to come back to the not celebration, but the thing that they're having for the flood on the day. I'll be on holiday that day, so I won't be able to come. But I've lived in Ryle my life, and well, not now, but I did do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Writing all these facts out.
Oh.
Anything
we're
else?
done. What did you feel like when the flood happened?
You'll have to speak up because I'm a bit deaf and I haven't put my hearing aids in.
Okay.
So.
What did you feel like when the flood happened?
Well, when it first happened, the first I knew about it, because my husband, he was the photographer on the Lancaster Guardian at that particular time, and he'd gone sort of nearer to Lancaster because they said there was a lot of damage, i.e. trees down and all sorts of different things. And somebody there said that they'd heard that half of Wray Village had gone with a flood. So he came flying back home, picked me up. I left the children with their grandparents, and we came up, and we couldn't get through. We only got as far in the car as Clafton. So we got out of the car and we were talking. The fire brigade came and they said, "Oh, come on, Colin, get on here with us." So he left me, couldn't drive, and he just left me, and the police took me home. Well, he went through the fire brigade radio, and the fire brigade radio rang me, from the main place. They rang me and they told me, sort of exactly what it was that was happening and everything, so they kept me in touch. And because I was born and brought up here, it was absolutely shocking, and he said there's hardly anything left. And of course my mother and father lived down in the bottom, and he said, "Your mum's been hurt because she nearly ripped her thumb off, like that, but otherwise she's okay." My father, he'd gone down to Hornby with the car and couldn't get back, so he didn't know what was happening. But next day we came in, and it was shocking. It was absolutely shocking to think that that little part of the village where I'd spent all my youth, you know, and it had gone.
So when did you realise that the storm was going to be a bad one?
Well, I was at work in the afternoon. It was about 2 o'clock, and everything went black. It went absolutely black. And I said, oh, somebody's going to have a storm somewhere. Look at it. We had all the lights to put on and everything like that. And of course, it wasn't until I got home and until, you know, my husband rang and said what had happened that we knew about it.
How young were you when the flood happened?
Oh, now then, I was 20, about 27. I was, yeah.
Was it your house or anyone's house damaged by the flood that you knew?
Oh, well, we knew everybody. You know, I mean, not now, you don't know anybody now, you know, everybody's all different and what have you, but yes, everybody you knew. And it was just horrendous. It was. And all the dirt, the main sewer had blown outside my mother's front door, and all the water and sewerage came in through the door and knocked my mother through and into the kitchen, and she was up to here in water, couldn't get out. She was actually got and stood on top of the washing machine, and there was sewerage, there was rats, there was lots of things, and she couldn't get out because we'd put a big window in for her. And the pressure cooker came bobbing along like this on top of the water, and she kept saying, come on, come on, come on. And she got the pressure cooker and she did this until the window broke, and it took her through. And she took all down here, cut all her thumb right down there, and the thumb was, you know, hanging off like that. But it swept her out, and she managed to get hold of a wall and got herself up on the wall. And she actually, before she went up the back, you know, to the back of the church up there, she got the two old ladies who lived next door, and they were in their 80s and 90s, and she got them and pulled them up a 6-foot wall like this before she went through, and nobody around the other end of the village really knew anything about it. When you got round that corner.
Where did you stay on the night of the flood?
Where did I stay?
Yeah.
I was at home, but my mother and father, they came down to me at Caton, and they stayed with me for quite a while actually. But they wanted to get back into the village, you know, with the friends and neighbours and everybody.
Did you have any brothers or sisters that experienced the flood?
No, my brother, he lived in London at the time, so he was, you know, 250 miles away.
Were you surprised that your mum's cut thumb was the only injury to report?
Say again, sorry.
Were you surprised that your mum's cut thumb was the only injury to report?
I was very surprised, and I was very, very surprised nobody had lost their life, because that was a big thing. Nobody had died.
How long did it take for Ray to get back to normal again with all the houses built up?
I don't think Ray ever got back to normal again, to be quite honest. There was always something. There was, you know, sort of, well, they lived in a caravan on the church field for about 6 or 8 months, and then they got permission to build further back on the gardens, you know. That's why down where my mother lived next to the river, there's big long drives up, and that's so they built then. And Mr. and Mrs. Bastow, who were the neighbours then, they also built on as well. So it'd be a good 18 months before, you know, they got actually into the house. I think it was built fairly quickly.
Do you have any other facts about the flood?
I have a lot of facts because I've got all the original photographs, because my husband was the first one in there with the fire brigade. So all the photographs that he took, and then you see, of course, after that, they stopped people coming in. And they had a passport thing down just as you're coming out of Hornby. You had to have a passport to actually come into Wray. And but when I came in, you know, and of course they knew who I was, the police knew who I was, and they said it was okay to come in. But everybody in the village didn't go to work for 3 or 4 days after that, because they were there helping everybody to move things out and get rid of all the mud. My mother's cottage, it was filled up to the ceiling, and then even about that far up in the bedrooms. So, you know, it was a big lot of water in there.
Yeah.
How old were you in the flood?
I was 16.
Where were you when the flood hit?
When the flood hit, I was probably on my way back from Kirby Lonsdale. I'd been to Kirby Lonsdale show, so it was sort of coming back. We sort of got back just after the flood was hit.
Did you lose your house?
No, we lost a corner of the house was hanging over the river. But then it was sort of, we went on to Baxbottom Farm. This Baxbottom Farm was part of the land that we have, so we helped get Alice and Bill out.
What did the water look like?
What did the water look like? From when I got there, it was very brown, probably, and rushing, and rolling. I think rolling more than anything.
Where did you live when you were in Wray?
We lived at Rogan-Scar.
Where's that?
It's just up Rogandale East. It's just a sort of wooden bungalow just up on the east side.
Did you find any parts of the flood interesting?
Well, our main concern was the house was going to fall in. And then when we realised our house was in trouble, then we rushed up to Baxbottom Farm, and I went up there with some firemen. I think there were 3 or 4 firemen I went up there with, and then we spent quite a while sort of trying to get across to Bill and Alice Brown, who were in the house. It was a slow process, but we did get there in the end.
Did you find it exciting? Like,
I wouldn't say that exciting was the word. A bit scary.
Yeah.
And it was sort of scary, the force of one of the firemen when we were trying to work out how to get across the river, he just put his foot in, and he was tied up with a rope, but he went about 20 feet down the river just from putting one foot in. And so it was a sort of, it was a really strong, and that was after most of it had died down. It was still very strong at that stage. And there was about sort of 20 feet between where the bank was and where the farmhouse was.
Did you lose any of your relatives?
No, there were no people lost. It was mainly animals. At the farm there were quite a lot of animals lost.
Did you live on a farm, like, and
No,
lose any animals?
we weren't looking after the farm. It was Ben and Alice who were looking after the farm. We had horses and things in one of the bottom. Well, we didn't have them in the bottom field, luckily, because the bottom field where they normally were down by the river, that disappeared altogether. So that was about an acre size, and that's completely gone now. There's no sign of it.
That's kind of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our names are Ruby and Holly.
Ruby and Holly.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Tony.
Okay. So did you live in the village at the time?
No, I lived just outside, Broadwood's on the Millhouses Road. The big hill against the next bridge.
Okay, did you witness the flood?
No. I was at home.
Yeah.
And I came. I actually went up the land of mine to see if there was anything damaged by the lightning. And I was on the Cragghall Road, and I met Frank Harrison from Burke's, and he just said his sister had just come back. She was going to Hornby, and she's come back in Echo Estate. Echo Estate, he said. She said Wray had washed away. And Frank said, I'm going to Luke. Do you want to come? So I said, yeah, and we came down. And I couldn't believe my eyes when I got down, because the house I'd lived in 4 years prior, and 3 more had completely disappeared. And in those days I worked on the council, so I got to start work then at 8 o'clock or 7:30, whatever it was. And I was on duty on the bridge with the policeman from Lancaster, stopping anyone who didn't live in the village coming in. And it got to about 1 o'clock in the morning, and this couple came, a Mr. and Mrs. Rawnsley happened, actually, and they'd been visiting relatives in Bradford, and the policeman said, you can't go in. And I said, well, of course they can. I said, their house was the one that was badly damaged. And so we let them through, sent them to the institute, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, a wagon came and picked me up, took me round to the Mailbank Bridge down Wannington Road, and we put barriers across to stop any traffic or anything falling in the river, and I went home about 3:30. I came back into Wray the next morning, roughly 7:30, and spent probably the next 3 weeks cleaning all the debris and rubbish off the road. We helped get part furniture out as we could do from houses upstairs. And when we got the main street clean, we went round, they cleared the bridge with JCBs and things like that.
Yeah.
We went round the back of the beck and we cleaned those cottages out. And you wouldn't believe, it was 10 inches up the bedroom walls. It was a watermark. And I would say, from the river bottom to the bedroom, it must have been 20 foot. And that was virtually what I did, as far as it was in Wray, working every day, cleaning up and getting the road open. And then we progressed up to the mill and the houses up there. And that was what how I was involved.
Do you know how dirty the water was?
Pardon?
Do you know how dirty the water was?
I'd have to speak up a little bit.
Do you know how dirty the water was?
How dirty? Oh, it was extreme. I mean, it would be like black, brown, muddy, bound to be.
Yeah. So it reached 20 feet, did you say?
I said it must have been 20 feet from the riverbed to the height it was in the bedrooms round the corner from the going round the back of the beck, yeah.
It's very high. Did any relatives of yours live in Wray at the time?
I'd lived in the house I'd lived in. I had an uncle and aunt and 2 cousins lived in. One of those has completely disappeared, yes.
How many people helped with the clean-up around?
Everybody is good at that. Was the people, obviously some people had to go to the work, but everybody was about. We've all got a job, and the council put quite a lot more men in and wagons and things like that to take all the rubble away.
Yeah, because they couldn't use the old furniture because it was polluted by the water.
Well, the furniture, there was a house, you'd have seen the photographs, haven't you, of all the ones, And well, the ones on the left-hand side going down the street, there was one at the far end as hadn't been washed out. It, you know, it was still standing. And we went in through a window, I think it was in the gable end, and we did get part things out through there because it was safe to go, you know, because it wasn't in danger. The others, you could see furniture hanging there, but it wasn't safe to try and get them because all the, well, you saw the pictures, didn't you?
Yeah. Did you witness like any escapes? Like, were they?
Did I what, love?
Witness any escapes from like bedroom windows?
No. As I said, it would be 7:30 when I got into Wray at the night. I wasn't there when it happened. It was about 6 o'clock, I believe, when it happened, somewhere in there.
Do you know how long it lasted?
I don't, but the storm itself lasted about half an hour with us.
Yeah. Interesting.
It must have just, I think what would be the cause of it was if it come, a cloud burst up on the moors, on the fells, and every bridge it came to, it sort of blocked down and made it higher, and then it went, and it did that all the way coming down. It would do quite a few farm bridges and obstacles. And there was we went up to Backsbottom one day to do, well, more or less for luck at dinner time, and there was a piece of wood up there. I would say it was maybe 30 to 40 foot wide, where the water had come through, and there were trees, 18-inch through. It was completely flattened. It had all gone. They had just taken every tree out of that plantation.
Do you know how many houses were flooded?
Not really. Well, I mean, all those down the main street as was in the photographs would be, and I think the one at the top as was standing probably was in the basement.
Yeah.
And then there was some round the back of the back. Most, a lot of those was water in them.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you heard that Wray had been flooded?
Well, I mean, he told me that, and it took a bit of believing actually until he actually came and saw what had happened. You know, something could be devastated in what, half an hour, to the extent it was.
Yeah, and it was like in such a short space of time for the flood to...
Pardon?
It was in such a short space of time that the flood just destroyed all those houses.
Yes. Must have been frightening.
Yeah.
Well, it would be very frightening for the Browns at Backsbottom Farm because they was actually in the house, in the bedrooms, and it took 2 walls completely out. It would be very frightening for those people.
Yeah. That's all I've got.
Okay. I don't think so.
That was a really good interview.
Pardon?
That was a really good interview.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you live in the village at the time?
Well, I didn't live in the village itself. I lived half a mile out on the Wennington Road at the farm, Tate and Bob.
And do you have any brothers or sisters that experienced the flood?
No, not brothers or sisters, but I had a husband and two sons.
When did you find out about the flood?
Well, the whole family, my 2 children and myself, and my children were 14 and 12 at the time, were in the south of Ireland on holiday there, and we'd been out on the beach all day, and we came into the hotel, and there was our village on television, flooded. You know, it was frightening. I could see it. You know, all the water coming down like a sea, down the village. It was awful to be so many miles away and not being able to do a thing about it. And of course we couldn't get on the telephone because all the lines were down. So we were just left in limbo for a long time.
And do you know how high the water got?
Well, on our land it was 6 feet deep with silt, roughage that had been washed down the village and down the river Wenning.
Do you have any special memories?
Well, watching my family, digging out people's possessions that had been washed down the river, chests of drawers, and people's private belongings that had come down the river in the water, and as it subsided, all the things that they'd lost were left on the land, and they were digging them all out. That was the horrid bit, because it was so personal to people's lives.
How long did it take Wray to come back to normal?
Oh goodness. Well, it was pretty swift because an awful lot of help came in. I would think probably, I don't know, to guess, it was a few, about a year, because the bridge had gone and that had to be repaired. So yes, quite a long time, about a year probably.
And do you have any other facts or stories you'd like to share with us?
I think I've already told you the things that really matter. We were not, but with not being here, you see, we didn't actually see the water. It was just the result of it when we got back home. The horror of it was being unable to get in touch with anybody. When we were in Ireland, we couldn't get in touch with anybody here. Not for hours and hours. It was dreadful, really, because we were so worried about people.
Thank you.
How old were you when the flood hit?
16 years old.
And I was 15.
How long ago have you been at Wray?
I was at Wray 13 years then. What, for the flood, you mean? Yeah, I was at Wray, 13 years, yes.
16?
Yeah, yeah. I came to Wray when I was 3 years old, yes.
Did you lose your house?
Yes. Yes.
No,
Yes.
I didn't.
No. But this lady lived opposite. Yeah. But your auntie lost her house, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Where did you live?
In the main street.
Did you find any of the flood interesting?
Found it very upsetting, but if it happened during the night, a lot of lives would have been lost, wouldn't it? Yes, yes. Right, yeah. Right. That's my house there. Ooh. Yeah. Right. Now I've got that door. Back at house. Is it on that one? Right. Yeah. No, that's. Oh. Yes, and that's my bedroom. Yeah. Yeah. That's the kitchen, and that's the cellar. Yeah.
Did you feel quite sad when you lost your house?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. But I was on holiday, so I heard about it when the morning after on the radio there was some floods, and I come back to Wray on the Friday night. Yes. Then the Saturday morning we came down. I went to stop at the Relations Friday night. Then Saturday morning I came down, went into the institute, and got 1 or 2 things from the institute. I know I got a pair of shoes. You know, yeah, different things from the institute. Then we went to live at Burnley Lonsdale for 3 months. Then we come back to live in the village, in a rented cottage built to Michelle's grandparents. Then 18 months after, maybe 18 months, 12 months, 18 months, something like that, we lived on Wennington Road. We had one built, yes. One man, he found a heap of soil So I thought, oh, I'll go home. I can't remember if it was his spade or his trowel. Went home and he dug. He found a ornament of ours and 2 or 3 different things of different body else's. Yeah.
What did he find of yours then?
Well, my mum had 3 ornaments and there were 3 ducks.
Mm.
And we found 2 ducks, but then he found the 3rd. Yeah, so when somebody came, oh, you've got your other duck. Yes, yes. I found it when my children was little. I had no toys to pass on to my children, like my dollies, stuff like that. Yeah.
Did you lose any of your relatives?
No. Well, see, nobody died.
Nobody died.
Nobody died.
No.
Nobody
That
died.
was-
That was a blessing, really, weren't it?
Yeah, that it was daytime and
yes,
it wasn't night time.
Yeah. That's where Michelle lived. This lady here.
I
That's
lived right opposite.
That's where. Yeah. If you want to open it up, you can do, boys.
So we were just badly flooded.
That's yours, isn't it?
No, further up, look. Yeah. See, then we did a sponsored walk.
Yeah. How long did the flood last?
I don't know. I've heard different things about this.
Yeah.
I won't like to say. I think it started about. Hello.
Hello. All right.
Yeah.
Looking at photos.
Yes.
So we've got Margaret here. If that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Margaret a seat because she's the next one.
All right.
To be done.
Yeah. Yes.
You'd like to have a seat?
Thank
Would you like
you.
a cup of tea or anything?
Well, I'd love a cup of coffee.
Milk?
Black coffee, no.
Black coffee.
So.
And some sugars.
That's
And a sponsored walk.
Yeah. That's the form, and that's where you see we have to have it stamped every so many miles.
So is it all the dark kind of?
I would like to say actually. Do you know that bit?
It was just the map of the walk, wasn't it?
Yeah. Could be actually, couldn't it? Yeah, could be. Yeah. And then we get it stamped so many miles. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, that's the back of the new houses.
Thank you.
I'll let the teacher
Yeah,
know.
back of the new houses. Yeah. Yeah. So you got any more questions?
No, that's it.
Yeah. So has that helped you or not?
Yeah, it has quite a bit.
Is it?
Yeah.
But I don't know how long the flood lasted.
Being a citizen of this village, or some other people might say I'm an old bloke that lives on Hornby Road. I first came to Wray in 1955 with my family. I served in the army for 2 years in the Royal Engineers, got married in '63, moved to Newcastle to work, where I was in 1967 August when the flood occurred, which was quite frightening, living there and seeing the headlines about your home village being flooded. So it was quite frightening. I then moved to Manchester, where I was computer manager for Dunlop Tyres, and I retired from that work and came back to Wray in 1977, 40 years ago. That's who I am. I have a sister here called Brenda Mickle. You maybe know Brenda, do you? Yeah, well, Brenda's my younger sister. And I have a daughter still living in Wray, Karen Ellison, who is a doctor's receptionist at Hornby, and at one time was a leading light in the PTA. Right, carry on. It's all up to you now. You know who I am.
Yeah. Where were you during the flood?
Yeah, we were living in, as a family, we lived in Newcastle upon Tyne.
And when did you find out about the flood?
I was still in bed, so I kind of been at work, and my wife came rushing upstairs. She put the radio on and heard about it on the radio on the national news, and then we rushed out to get newspapers to find out what was going on. So we found out by the radio on the morning of August, whatever date it was, I've forgotten now.
And do you have any idea how high the water got?
Yes, I have a good idea. Two things. One, there's a mark on the bus shelter, which I think is correct, saying how high it was. And another idea is my sister Brenda Mickle lived in a cottage on opposite the bus stop, and she told me that the water was halfway up the wall in her downstairs living room. So if you wanted more detail about the height, ask Mrs Mickle, because she knows exactly how high it went. She had all the mud to clean out afterwards.
And how long did it take for Ray to become normal again?
Do you know, I don't think Ray ever became normal again. People who lost their houses were accommodated locally, and then they had caravans on the school field to live in. New houses were built for them to live in. We had fundraising events. I don't know if anybody's told about the sponsored walk, have they? Do you know about that? Right. The following year, there was a 23-mile sponsored walk that went from Ray right over the Tots Bottom, over Tatum, back down to Bentham, from Bentham through to Burton and Lonsdale, back again to Old Wennington, up through Melling, Tatum and back to Ray, and I was 98th back out of a few thousand.
Wow.
I've got a certificate for it still. If you want it, just come see me. I'll give you the certificate as part of your ongoing.
Thank you.
Somebody also mentioned something about a pram in the basement. Could you tell us more about this?
No. As I said before, I didn't live here then, so things like that you'll have to ask the people that lived here. I've heard of things like that. A friend of mine, the Wright family, who lost their house, I know that her cabinet with her knickknacks in from the house was found miles or so down the river after the flood subsided, and they always say that the glass broke, mud got in, all the little knickknacks were still intact, they didn't get broken. So she got her little knickknacks back, although the cabinet was a bit of a mess. She got a lot of the knickknacks back, the mud saved them. But I've not heard about a pram in the cellar, I'm afraid.
And do you have any other facts or stories you would like to share?
Well, I've come to especially to tell you about other floods that happened before that. Ray, the 67 flood was not something new. I'll tell you about them. The first one I can find out a bit about was, what did I say, 1852. There's a flood on the 26th of December, Boxing Day, on 1852, and it was reported that some of the river banks were swept away and an extraordinary amount of damage was done, but that is all I've been able to find out about that one. After that, the next mention of a flood is in 1859, 17th of November, and 1881. But the one we know most about happened in 1892. Floodwater from the Wenning, Hyndburn and Roeburn all fed into the River Lune, which it is said rose by 7 feet in 3 hours. Lancaster did not suffer too much, some houses in Skirton being flooded. Hornby, it was stated that very great damage was done to Hornby, and some of the houses there had 5 feet of water. Now we get to Ray. As in 67, the great damage was done in the Roeburn Valley. At Ray, the locals reckoned the water rose 2.5 feet higher than they could remember. Backsbottom Farm, of course, seemed to take all the brunt. It did in 67 when it was destroyed. It got flooded in 1892. Only thing that happened at Backsbottom was he managed to get all his animals away to the farm in St Dodgson, but then he went looking for his pig and found it in the sty in the corner with just its nose sticking up above the water. So he grabbed it by its ears and managed to drag the pig out of the sty onto dry land, so he managed to save it. Now in those days there used to be a reservoir serving water to Ray and Hornby. Do you know where it is? reservoir. But it's still here in Wray. If you go from round the back of the beck, you know where the old mills are, is right, go past the cottages and then go a sharp turn left up the hill, going towards Bottom. Well, up there on the right hand side there's still the remains of a reservoir. So that's still there. That was there for the water when I first come to Wray in 1955. It was still being used. But that got damaged, and loads and loads of mud and rocks and everything finished up down on Bottom Farm land. And the other part that got really damaged was the quarry. Now, did you know there used to be a quarry in Wray? Right. The quarry at Wray provided, it supplied things to Lancaster and Morecambe, and it used to make slates, but not the slates we see nowadays on roofs of houses, the big slab slates that they used to use. And most of the houses in Wray had these sort of slabs on the roofs, that was the roofing. And it was all done at the quarry in Wray. Now to get to the quarry in Wray, go back to past the cottages we talked about before. Now where you turn left to go up the hill to Bottom, you go straight on, there's a private road down to a little bungalow that the Everett's used as a holiday cottage. That was the road to the quarry. As you went past the cottage they've got there used to be a bridge across the river that got washed away in the '67 flood. But before that, when I first came to here, we used to be able to go into the quarry because it was disused then. But in 1892, the flood then washed away the road, washed away the bridge. That's the Roeburn coming down, washed away the road, washed away the bridge. And that meant the quarry workers couldn't get the stone out. They had lots of orders because they were a busy place, and so financially it didn't help very much that they weren't able to fulfil their orders, and therefore they lost business. And that took quite a while for that to be repaired. So that was the Roeburn, that was Roeburn Valley. Bottom Farm was flooded. The reservoir got swept, part of the reservoir swept away, and the quarry was badly affected. Now Wray itself wasn't badly affected as in '67. Right, coming to the village, half the mill weir was washed away. Now, again, do you know where the weir used to be? There used to be a mill weir. Round the back of the beck, the big old buildings were mills at one time, and they were serviced by water power. The Roeburn used to come down, and then there was a channel built of concrete down one side to force the water to rush down to power a wheel for power. But then there's a weir there as well to hold the water back so it'll get down. Right, in 1892, half the weir was washed away, and behind this Smithy Brow, after the wall was broken down on Smithy Brow, that was the only damage in Wray in 1892. So it was nothing like 1967. And then the only part that didn't really affect Wray, but the River Hyndburn, that was flooded as well, and that had a few bridges, footbridges across in those days because there were no roads and they were all washed away, and they had a nice new bridge 5 years old at Millhouses that was big stone pillars and girders across, and all that was washed away, and I never saw any of that again. They don't just where it went, so it gives you an idea how savage that water was coming down the Hyndburn, and all that with the Roeburn all collected into the Lune and caused further damage down in Lancaster. And that's basically it. The main difference between 1967 and these others in up to 1892, they're all caused by constant rain. It rained for days on end, just rained and rained for 2 or 3 days, and that's where the water came from. Now in 1967, the police have photographs of, there was what they call a cloudburst on Mallardale Fell, It's a farm where Mrs. Mickle used to farm after that later on. And the cloudburst just hit the ground and it made a massive hollow. It just looks as if a bomb had gone off. And there's a massive hollow up there where the rain all came down, and the first bridge to go was the bridge across the river to Malladale Farm. That was in 1967. And that was a big difference between 67, Wray 1967 was caused by a cloudburst. The others I've talked about are all caused by incessant rain. That's about all, I think. Anything else you'd like to know?
No, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Our names are Ruby and Holly.
Holly. Oh, I've got a little niece called Holly too, nice name. And I'm Emmeline, as you know. Right, well then, now then, this is the Wray Flood.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. And do you know something about it already?
Well, we've gathered some questions we would like to ask you.
Fine. I brought, you know, a bit of a talk to give you, but if you've got questions, that's even better.
Yeah, okay.
Far ahead.
What gave you the interest to capture the flood's reckless destruction and poetically describe it for others to listen and flourish in?
Well, it was the school, really, because we were adding on this bit. When I was a governor, this bit got added on and we needed money. And I thought, well, how can I raise some money for the school? And I knew there'd been, you know, an interesting flood. It was before I came. I didn't come. The flood was 67, and yes, as you know, 50 years ago. And I didn't come until I think 1982. But I knew quite a lot about it, and I looked up all the newspapers and things, and wrote the book. And we raised £500, I think, to help with the school.
Yeah. Did you have any relatives who witnessed the flood or have helped recover the tragic village from its irreversible state?
No, I didn't have any relations at all. Did you?
No,
Neither
I
of
don't
you?
think so.
Because there are still people around. I don't know whether anybody in the school has got relations, but there are still people in the village who were there. Have you talked to some of them?
No, you're the first person we're interviewing. So then.
But you are going to interview other people, aren't you? Because yes, I can. I mean, you probably know them. You've probably already got the names, but I know one or two who really know a great deal, much more than I do.
How did you gather the information for the book?
With a tape recorder, and going round the people who knew about the flood. I've found out who'd been living in the village then. I may have missed out a few, but and I took a tape recorder and said, would they mind telling me, and I asked them questions, and they gave me, the person who gave me the best story, and I hope you'll see him, is Mr. Forrest.
Yes.
Are you going to see him?
We're not going to, but somebody else in our classes.
Because he was a policeman.
Yes.
he was a young policeman, and now he's an elderly gentleman. But if he remembers well, he's really the person. And a lot of I mean, you probably know, there's a lot in the book that is from tape recording Mr. Forrest. He told me a great deal, because he did all kinds of things, like scrambling up a plank into somebody's bedroom to get them out. But the silly thing was, as you may know, that the flood only lasted half an hour.
Really?
Yes. And if Mr. Forrest had waited a few minutes, he didn't have to forget the man's name, didn't have to get him out. There was this chap who was bedfast, and up in the first floor, and the water was round the legs of the bed, and Jerry Forrest went in through the window, and as he'll tell you, and said, well, come on, you better get out. And the chap said, where are my trousers? So Mr. Forrest gave him his trousers, and then he said, well, where are my underpants? And Mr. Forrest said, don't bother about underpants, let's get out. But if he'd waited a few more minutes, he wouldn't have needed to, because the water came up and went down in half an hour. astonishingly.
Is it Dick Woodhouse, the man who was trapped?
The house isn't there any longer.
No.
It was, do you know the bottom of the village?
Yeah, next
Do you know there's one nice old house that stands? That one, it was a bit damaged, but it stood. But of course there were a whole lot on each side. You know where the flood gardens are?
Yeah.
Well, there was a row there and they all went. And there was houses behind the one that's standing and they went. And then there was this one little cottage, sort of, I've seen a photograph of it I think, slapped against the end of the house that is still there. And that was where the chap was in bed upstairs.
Wow.
Yes, it was amazing. And the thing that everybody ought to remember, that out of all this, one person cut their thumb trying opening a window, smashing a window to get out at the back, and she cut her thumb. And there was nothing else, in spite of all the dangers and traumas and climbing ladders and getting caught up. Nobody got hurt, which was quite amazing.
Yeah.
It really was.
Did anything inspire you to write the book?
Well, I thought it was a very interesting story.
Yeah.
And I'd met various people who remembered it. The other person who you probably know and are going to talk to, do you know Sheila at the post office?
Yes, we're interviewing her.
Yeah.
Because she was in Lancaster that day buying her uniform. She wasn't here, she was buying her uniform because she was going to go to the grammar school. And she came back, she'll tell you all about it. But yes, she was, I think her father, her house I think got pretty wet. There was a lot of houses got very wet, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, it was pretty nasty because of all the mud that came up and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's amazing how it could do so much damage in such a little space of time.
Well, it came. It was quite amazing because it was what's known as a cloudburst. I'm not quite sure what a cloudburst is, but it's really when rain falls absolutely torrentially, far more so than ordinary hard rain. And it was up, you may know this already, it was up on the tops, and in fact it cut out. Have you seen the book? Have you seen the picture of the at the beginning?
No,
it's
we haven't.
Not terribly easy to see, but let me show you. Yes, here. You see, there's the moor with all the rushes and the grass growing, and then there's just this piece here, which was completely cut out, down to the earth, with a man standing in it. And it was not very big, I never saw it. I think the school children went up and looked at it at the time, or afterwards. It was just that little bit, and there was this cloudburst which fell. Quite amazing. Wow. And in fact, this Wray wasn't, you know, Wray wasn't hit as badly. That's right on the top of the fell. And so half the storm went down the other side. And in fact, more than half the storm went down the other side, but there weren't any villages. It ruined a lot of fields, probably drowned a lot of cattle and sheep.
Yeah.
But there was no village in the way. It was just Wray. It was bad luck.
Yeah,
Very bad.
So it wasn't too bad then if most of it went down the other side, because it could have been really a lot worse.
It could have been worse, but for about 20 minutes it almost couldn't. Have you looked over what they call Smithy Brow? Just down the road here.
Yeah.
It's called Smithy Brow because the village smithy used to be there when there were horses. And I think it's a little car park now. It's the gap at the end of the houses beyond the post office, and then there's a little gap, and then there's a couple more houses.
Yeah.
And that gap is called Smithy Brow. And if you look over, you want to do this because you can hardly believe it. You look over and it's, I think, there wasn't a wall there then. It went straight over, but it's about 20 feet, sort of from the roof to the playground, straight down. And what everybody remembered was they all said, and the water was coming over Smithy Brow.
Yeah, that's what it says in
Yes.
somebody's poem that she wrote.
Yes, but because there's a corner, you see. That's why it's called Wray, which is an old word for a corner. And the river comes round on that side. And the other side was much lower, the water was much lower, but it all banked up on this side, came over Smithy Brow and went down the main street.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And if the bridge at the bottom had gone, if the bridge at the bottom of the village was built in about 1700 and something, it got lots of trees piled up against it, but the bridge didn't break. That was why the water backed up. If the bridge had broken, the water would have gone on through and there wouldn't have been the backup.
Yeah.
So,
It's really interesting.
well, it is a fascinating story, I must say.
Yeah. And seeing that it's had that much damage and now it's a beautiful place down at the Flood Gardens.
Now the Flood
with
Gardens
the mosaic.
are very nice. Yes, and have you noticed at the Flood Gardens, have you seen, there's a line on the bus shelter, which is where the water got to?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Yes, although it is a bit of a guess because the bus shelter wasn't there. So when they built the bus shelter, they put where they believed the water got to. It was about there.
Yeah, there is a man, it's the Flood Gardens and there's a river, and across the river there's like a row of houses.
Yes.
Well, we've been told that the river actually got up to the height of one of the house's top window.
It did, and they all got out the back doors and went up the hill.
Yeah.
So they were all right.
Yeah.
No, it was an amazing occurrence. A number of people who had to escape. Nobody got. There was a panic because there was a boy, I don't know who it was, but who said he'd seen a body with its legs in the air going down the river, being swept down the river. And it wasn't, it was somebody's pig. And but for a little while they thought perhaps somebody had been drowned, but no, nobody was drowned, nobody was, as I say, one cup farm and nobody was hurt.
Was that Miss Whittam's?
Miss Whittam. Mrs. Whittam.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Who has died now, I think. Was she?
Yeah,
yes.
She died, I think it was last year.
Yeah, yes. But still, there are still people, as you say, you're going to
Do you
talk to
know
people.
why the Flood Gardens was created?
Yes, it was to celebrate. It was empty because there were no houses, and it was to celebrate the millennium, 2,000 years. All the villages did things to celebrate 2000, the year 2000, and so this village discussed for a bit and voted, and people thought it would be a good idea to celebrate, remember the flood. And so they created the Flood Gardens. And there's this, I don't know whether she's still working or even if she's still alive, but there was, out of the village, towards beyond Wennington, I've forgotten her name, there was this woman who did these,
mosaic.
Have you heard of her? You don't remember her name?
Oh, I have heard of it.
Yes, I've forgotten. But anyway, she did. She planned that, and then it was she did it all. It was the kind of work she did. But the brown bits, can't see very well, but if you walk down, the brown bits here these are stones out of our river. And all the people in the village collected those and put them in. The proper person, Mrs. what's her name, she did all the grand stuff, but we did all this.
Yeah.
And everybody went along and planted stones, which the children had got. Mostly the children had collected them out of the river.
And if you look carefully on the mosaic, there are clouds blowing, and that must be the cloudburst.
It must be. Yes, I think so.
Yeah, because there's one with
That's it,
wind
yes.
and rain and...
Yes. So there we are. So then it seemed like 50 years was a good time to remember it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very interesting.
All right. Is that it? Have I got anything else? I did write one or two notes in case you needed anything. I think we've talked most of it.
Okay.
Yes, there were actually as many as 20 houses which either went or had to be pulled down. There's a little map of them in here, and they had to go because there were, of course, houses all down the Flood Garden. There was a whole row there.
Yeah.
And Mr. Forrest you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
Or you have talked to. No, you're going to talk to.
You're the first person,
Yes,
so we
yes.
are going to.
Right. Oh yes, and there's quite an interesting thing. Of course, after it was over, Wray became famous for a bit, and everybody wanted to visit Wray. And so the police set up stops on the roads round Wray, and all the inhabitants of Wray were issued with passports. So they had police passports and had to show them when they came in, because strangers weren't allowed into the village. Because everybody was trying to get everything straight. I mean, the water had gone, the sewage had gone, the electricity had gone, there wasn't any gas. And so it was full of workmen and people doing things. And so they didn't want anybody else coming in being gawping.
Yeah.
So they issued the Wray people with passports. I don't know whether anybody's still got one.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
I expect it was only a paper, but you could ask Mr. Forrest.
Yeah, or the man that lives down the road, what's his name?
Bill.
There's or Bill or come back, David Kenyon.
Was he in the village then, David Kenyon? I know some of the Kenyons were, but I didn't know that David himself was in the village, although he probably knows a lot about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure, it doesn't say here.
I'm not sure, because the Kenyons actually, their farm was up the steep road beyond the school here, right away up.
Yeah.
And I thought David was, who must have been quite young, was still up there. But there were Kenyons in the village. Yes, I do. Anyway, ask around.
Yeah, we have heard that David Kenyon has lots of newspaper cutouts and things.
He's got a mass of stuff.
Yeah.
And for the Scarecrow Festival, there was a massive table with all the paper cutouts and captions saying what they were for the flood.
Yes, he puts up an exhibition in the church, doesn't he? Every year. And he's got a mass of photographs. Whether any of them go back this far, probably they do. So he's well worth talking to.
Yeah.
He's easier to talk to than to stop. I warn you, you'll be stuck for quite a long time.
We've not got him, but someone else has. So.
How many of you are working on this?
Well,
there's a whole class full, 11 people.
11 people, and we had to partner up, and then we interviewed some people. I think we got 5 each.
Right. So who else have you got?
We've got Bill Bowman.
Oh yes.
We've got obviously here. We've got Tony Denby.
Yes.
And we've got Sheila Sedgwick.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Well, you'll do well with them.
Yeah.
Where does Tony still live in the village?
Not so sure.
You haven't got a telephone number there?
No, I've I've got.
I have a feeling he doesn't live in the village. Well, not obviously not far away, but of course some people have gone to Bentham and places.
Oh yeah, he has to collect. He lives in High Bentham now.
Ah, yes.
So you weren't there in the time of the flood?
I didn't come until, as I say, I think 15 years later.
15 years.
I think. I think I came here. I can't remember if it was 81 or 82, but maybe 14 or 15 years. So that's it. Any more questions?
No, that's
all
very
right?
good. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for listening to our questions and
answering them.
Well, thank you for thinking of me, because it's been great fun.
Yes, and you've been very good at the information and everything.
Yeah, we've got a lot of information.
And if you think, no, that's not for you, I guess.
No, that's not for us.
Somebody will take it elsewhere.
Yeah.
If you think of anything supplementary, somebody will tell you how to get hold of me.
Okay.
And if suddenly you think, oh, we should have asked that while she was there. Okay then.
Okay, that was really
All right.
interesting.
Many thanks. You're very good interviewers, if I may say so.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.